town, and we are glad you guys are here. And I just want to acknowledge a couple of people tonight. We have Suzanne Brown, who is sitting in for us and helping us with our minutes and taking minutes. She's from Woodland Park. So we just have a little card. And I also want to take this moment to acknowledge Chief Bradley. I don't know where he went. Mr. Loman, who is helping with our video. We have a little candy bar for you as well. Here's a candy bar. And I also want to acknowledge tonight, well, Chief Bradley, he stepped out, but he has just been doing so much work and picking up the slack today or this whole time, and so he gets a payday. But this is really for you, board, because I wanted to say thank you so much for all the extras you have done and the many different roles you have taken on. And this is all a volunteer thing. If you guys didn't realize, we do not get paid. So I wanted to give you a So I would like to say thank you and happy payday.
We work for potatoes. That's the double.
Happy payday. Thanks for all your work. Thank you, Trustee Brett. And Trustee Clem. Thank you. And a special thank you also wouldn't be complete without Mr. Krog, our town attorney, who graciously makes the drive every first and third Tuesday. So here's your payday as well. Thank you. Chief Bradley, here's that.
You get paid.
So there you go. I have one more.
That's yours.
Oh, it's mine. I didn't know I wasn't gonna get paid. Anyway, so just a little thank y'all for everything you've been doing recently. Okay, so on with the agenda tonight. Are there any additions, deletions, or corrections to this agenda? Okay, seeing that there are none, the agenda will stand as written. Item number 3, consent agenda. Approve the Board of Trustees minutes for 6/3/14 and the bills run for 6/3/14 to 6/16/14. We have the bills, and as a new practice, we will be looking over the bills at our meetings and signing them at the end of the meeting tonight. And so does anyone have any questions about any of the bills that we have written here? Okay. Is there a motion to approve?
Move to approve. Second.
Okay. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor vote by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, item number 4, public hearing. Okay, so at this time, we will move into a public hearing for vacation rental at 11135 Hondo Avenue. This was referred by the Planning Commission. So at this time, we are in a public hearing. It is 7:13. And we will first hear from anyone in the audience who would like to talk about this or have any comments about this vacation rental at all. Yes, please stand and state the name.
Hi, Willie Alexander, 10845 Orville Street. At the June 10th Planning Commission meeting, we made a recommendation to approve the variance conditional on house rules being edited to include a ban on open fires, as well as to include parking instructions, and if they're going to be parking on the public right of way, were those house rules forwarded to the Board of Trustees?
I didn't have those. No.
Thank you.
Did we get those house rules? No, last time? I thought I had them.
Maybe we captured the minutes.
They were to be submitted.
Okay.
else? Yes.
David Osborne, I'm owner of that property. I don't know, if I'd have to talk to my wife and find out if she did submit those or not.
Oh, the updates for the.
The updates.
Okay, yeah, no, we did not.
Okay.
Did not see
We'll get
those.
those to you.
Okay.
Point of clarification, where is that located?
11135 Pondo.
Is there a name on that?
High Haven,
What name?
High Haven.
Okay.
Are there any other comments there about that? Okay. No other public comments? Okay, at this time, then we were come out of our public hearing at 7:15, and we are now back in the regular meeting. Board, this did go as stated. This went in front of the commission, planning commission. There was a public hearing. The findings are, no one voiced opposition. The use is consistent with the goals and objectives of the master plan. Land use is compatible with the use. Use will not be detrimental to the safety and the public welfare. As Chairman Alexander mentioned, there were two stipulations there about the parking and also the fires that we will be getting shortly. Are there any comments about this at all from the board this time? Any current comments or anything? Okay. I think I was at that meeting with during the public hearing, and you did have representation there. I think that was your daughter, sir.
That was my sister.
Your sister-in-law, yeah.
Yeah.
And so, I would suggest we move to approve this.
Mr. Mossman, is the two stipulations going to be put in effect?
Yes.
No bans and parking permits,
No problem.
or parking
There
directions?
was a strong there, Angel Park. No parallel parking.
So, I move to approve that with those two conditions, and we will be getting those shortly.
I need some to Lily.
So,
You can
Jim Bounce Town Hall.
GMF Town Hall.
I'll second.
Second. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor, vote by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, very well. Okay, let's move on to another public hearing. Oh yeah, we just changed so quickly, don't we? So we're in another public hearing right now for the proposed Mount Dewey Trail. The time for this public hearing to move into this is 7:19, and we are now in a public hearing for the proposed Mount Dewey Trail. This has been in front of the board and the planning commission for a while now, and so this is our second public hearing. And I know that many people probably want to speak on this. I'm just asking that you keep those comments to 3 minutes, please, in order to give us all an opportunity to speak on this issue. I know it's very important to you guys and our community. Can you reach around and get the timer? That must be right around there. You can't really twist it on. Yeah, there should be a timer somewhere around there. Okay, so who would like to go first? Please stand and state your name for the record. Thank you. Yeah, make sure to stand, yeah.
My name is
Can you
Dick
see-
Brett. I've been a resident of Green Mountain Falls for 31 years at 11190 Hondo Avenue, right near the Catamount and Thomas Trailhead. I've been chairman of the planning commission for 28 years, excuse me. Sorry, Willie.
I'm only 6 months.
But I was for a while, for 8 years, but chairman of the Trails Committee for 28 years because I founded it back then. And we're now very robust. We have 11 members. We do a lot of work on trails. I know there's a lot of, I'll say hard feelings, a lot of animosity out there, and I'm sorry to see that. But I'm also glad to see that we can all get together and express our opinions. We came before the planning commission in April and said the Trails Committee would like to build an access trail on the top of Catamount Street. And things are going along fine, and we found out we had some opposition. So we went back to the drawing board and decided, let's look and see if there's any alternative locations we can go to. First of all, since some of you didn't make the other meetings, I'll give just a brief briefing on what we're talking about. This is our town base map. If you can't see it from the back row, I'll try to explain what I'm pointing to. This is Dewey Mountain up here. It's on the north edge of the city. It has some existing trails that start at the top of Catamount and other locations in the neighborhood. In fact, there's 7 places people start up Dewey Mountain. This map shows the existing trail that's been used for over 100 years, coming off the top of Catamount across private property and winding up, going on the north side of Dewey Mountain, circling around and coming back to the summit. This trail is very popular because it can be used in the winter. This is a south slope and the snow melts off pretty easily there. So for 100 years, people have been enjoying Dewey Mountain and then going farther up to Sheep Herders Ridge and then even farther all the way to the North Cat Reservoir. And when we had stables in town, Brockers first, and then the
Elkhorn.
that's it, Elkhorn. They had a lot of fun taking people up Dewey Mountain for campouts and marshmallows and scenery and picnics and stuff. There's only one problem. Horses, when they walk, they put one foot in front of the other, and they carve a very narrow groove. And unfortunately, the guys who led the horse trains went straight billy-goat up the mountain. Didn't follow contours, went perpendicular contours. And after they got through wearing in a narrow trail, Mother Nature came along and made these erosion gullies, huge erosion gullies, huge. Some of them with sidewalls 6-7 feet high. So they created four bad scars on the mountain. We have a new landowner. This property, when I came here 30 years ago, was owned by Allards. And they said, yeah, local residents can hike on our property. They sold it to Dean Ross. Dean Ross says, yeah, people can hike there. It's fine. I had been working with Dean to get some trails easements for permanent trails, and then he passed away. So the property changed hands again. Ray Burgess from Texas bought 140 acres up here. And most recently, he sold the 140 acres to the historic Green Mountain Falls Foundation. You may have heard the name Chris Cassidy, because he's the one that formed the historic Green Mountain Falls Foundation Board. Their mission is to enhance the life experience of Green Mountain Falls with art and with preserving open space and preserving trail systems. So he specifically bought this, it's actually 139.66 acres. This parcel, this parcel, this parcel, and this parcel that goes around this neighborhood here, all belong to the historic Green Mountain Falls Foundation. We have been talking with Mr. Cassidy for years about developing a trail system up there. And he's agreed that it's a good idea. That's one reason he bought the land, is to preserve the trails experience. Now, this area was zoned residential. It had the potential of 20 houses. He bought the land with one specific idea, didn't want to see a bunch of rooftops up here. Didn't want to see a bunch of driveways, road cuts. So he bought the land to prevent development. So this is a magnificent gift to our town. The current situation. People for the past 100 years have been going up Mount Dewey, and they're using a variety of accesses. 7 right now. Straight up Catamount, hikers go up there. Horses went up to Catamount, then split off. Some went up this gully, some went across on the Little John property. There's 2 horse trails across there. Some went over here to the end of Myrtle Street and right down to Mac Patron's backyard. For years, they cut a huge groove, right a grocery groove right up here. And some went out this way. Some even came down to Florence Street and crossed private land to enter this parcel this way. So we had 7 ways people have been going up the mountain. Our concern was if you have 7 routes going across private property, creating impact on the environment in 7 different routes. Trails Committee says, no, we should be smart enough to construct one good trail up there and get all the hikers to use that trail. Then we'll be able to close the other 6 routes, get off private property, and provide a decent, safe, engineered trail for all the people to enjoy, with a maximum of 15% grade, which is good for grandma and kids. We do that by putting in switchbacks. And switchbacks control the erosion, and they help solve a lot of other problems. So that was what our objective was. So the Trails Committee will design and construct new access trail with reasonable grades and drainage to avoid erosion control. Now, because of the neighborhood concerns up here,
Let's,
I'm getting close, okay?
okay, because your 3 minutes is way past and we let you
Oh,
go.
sorry, okay.
And we appreciate the background information, and I think that was your intent as well.
I
is to
got
make-
just one thing.
Okay.
The most important.
Okay,
Because of the feelings of the neighborhood up here, the Trails Committee went out and investigated 4 possible trailhead locations and put them on the table for evaluation. The Trails Committee did their evaluation from a standpoint of how hard do they construct, to construct what rock materials are for rock walls. How long do we have to build an access trail to reach the existing trail up here? All those considerations. And from a trail standpoint, we ranked the 4 trailheads as follows. Our first choice was Myrtle Street East and around this way to join the existing trail. First choice, the terrain was easy. We didn't have to do any switchbacks, and it could be used by mountain bikes. Second choice was Ora Street eastward. That's the next street up. We didn't rank that first because it goes in the backyards of several people, and pretty close proximity. But it's easy to build, really easy to build. Third choice was Myrtle Street West, over here. And I'm glad to see Bob Miller here. He drove all night probably to get here.
that's right.
Tulsa,
Wichita.
Wichita,
Do not.
because that trailhead location is right next to his house. He's got, the house is higher up in the hill, but he's got a garage with a deck on it, which overlooks that location.
Is that on his property? Would it be on his property?
No. All of these trailheads are on town land. None are on any private property. Okay, the 4th choice was Catamount, for a variety of reasons. It's the steepest, it's the narrowest corridor, and we would have to build 6 switchbacks in there. And there's no rock material for retaining walls for switchbacks. It would be a really tough trail for us to build. So it ended up in 4th place. Now, I think that covers the introduction.
Okay. I am sure we have more comment from people out there in the audience about this. Anyone whose property backs up there?
I'm going to jump up and start first, since the number one option runs behind my backyard. Robert Cook, I live at 10770 Florence. I've lived here 19 years. Until recently, I was a member of the Trails team. I helped build Bristol, I helped build Catamount, I worked on Thomas, worked on a number of trails. And obviously, I believe in trails.
Sir, can I ask you a favor?
Sure.
Because of our limited capability with live stream, can you go stand in the corner?
I'm sorry, I didn't mean it like that. Just right by the American flag.
No
See?
face recording.
Just very picture.
I'll start. Robert Cook, I live at 10770 Florence, 19 years. And the reason I'm here tonight and wanted to kind of speak right away is that I'm aware of the four choices. The most, I guess, the most recommended choice does run behind my house, and I want to say I have no objection to that. I am in favor of it. But with a caveat, I would like to see some sort of very good procedure in place to enforce town ordinances and trail rules. Anything from something relatively minor, such as people littering, moving up to dogs not on leash, to mountain bikes bonsaiing my property because it's a shortcut, to people smoking, which obviously is really a 5-alarm offense that probably needs to be looked at immediately. I don't know what can be done along those lines, given our limited law enforcement resources. That's my only concern. If people would follow the rules, I have no problem at all with the trail behind them. That's all I have to say.
Thank you very much. Okay, anyone else? Someone else who lives around there in that area? If you can stand up and please make your way up here. I'm not going to say stand in the corner again. Stand by the American flag and state your name and address, please.
Sharon Smith McCormick, 10715 Florence. So we're just basically a block below where the Green Mountain Falls Historic Foundation's property is. So anyhow, but we don't have any concerns. Tom McCormick's my husband, and neither one of us have any concerns. This trail is real different than all the other ones because you get a really great view of the mountains. And it's really nice. I mean, it's not like walking in a wooded area or just occasionally getting a view of the mountains. This one is, most of the time you're really getting quite a view. And it goes all the way around, like Dick said, to the Garden of Eden and then to the North Catamount. It's really a very nice detail. I didn't a lot. So, anyhow, we're hoping, we're not worried about fire. I mean, well, we are. We're definitely worried about fire, but most hikers are, pretty knowledgeable, and I would think most people hiking up there would be local. But anyhow, I know the cricks will be out there checking them. Making sure they're okay. Okay,
Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay, anyone else? Yes.
John Weber, 7270 Catamount, lived up there 32 years, got your The only concern we have major is the parking problem. And parking problems are twofold. One is that people need to park down, all the way down on Fuller Street or next to the pool, one of the two. And then we need to police that so that people are not parking next to your property, and all along Florence Street, so that it becomes congested like other streets do, like Grandview. That sometimes gets congested, so you can barely get one car up there. And so that's our major concern. Florence would be great. We think that'd be great as a start. That's all.
Awesome, thank you. Okay,
My name is Mac McCollum. I live at 1.840 Myrtle Street. I share the concerns of John. What I'm also concerned with is that you're asking people who hike that trail to park at the pavement down there, navigate 4 or 5 town streets. At this time of the year, if you just take a drive up there, you can see how congested it is. I think there's great potential for people to be injured. I don't think that's a great idea. I also believe that if you were to take a spur off the Catamount Trail here, you're within a couple of 100 yards of that property. And my guess is that if you were to build at this end of the property, you probably get a lot less heartache from the people who live over here and are going to have to deal with the people walking up the road, smoking cigarettes, taking their dogs on a leash or not, parking on private property or in the public street. So I would recommend that if you're bound and determined to build some trails, then I think taking a spur over here where it's already been developed, not that far from this property, would be a great alternative. Also wanted you to keep in mind that before you build any new trails, you need to be able to maintain the ones that you have. My understanding that the trails that are in place now are not in that great a shape. And to be perfectly honest with you, if I was the people who owned this property, I think I'd be pretty concerned about allowing somebody to take my property, chew it up with PVs and picks and shovels and whatever, and then not be able to maintain it. So if you're to do that and you can't maintain it, then you create a drainage hazard. Actually, you probably create a drainage danger, and so you need to keep that in mind. Before I would allow somebody to start building trails on my property, I think I'd want to know that they were going to be able to protect my investment. And this is not town property. This is Historic Green Mountain Falls Foundation property. They're allowing the town to use it.
Thank you, Mr. Bridgman.
That's a tough act to follow. David Britton, 11490 and 11496 Belvedere. We've been coming since '46, though I wasn't really born then. The only concerns that we have is our property line kind of goes right up here. We got about 12 acres kind of up and around this area. And we've had people on these trails come down our ravine a number of times. And that kind of concerns me as far as privacy, at night when they get lost up there, they come down a ravine, people have guns, you don't want people coming back behind their house. We also own property that goes up here. If you're gonna build trails up around here, some people might decide they're gonna do a little bushwhacking to come right down the side of that property, and the erosion up at the end of that canyon there is pretty bad. And it can get worse if you start getting that kind of traffic on there. Fire danger concerns us, as it does everybody. If you're gonna do this, are you gonna be having signs that say stay on trails? Do not get off trails? Because that's a big concern for us. And if you're worried about traffic up in here, you should see what it's like at the end of the place here. We sit on our front deck. We got cars coming here and people dropping off and dropping off and dropping off, and they go back down. There's no place up here for people to turn around. If they're dropping, and people aren't going to do that. They're going to go up there, well, we'll just drop you off. Well, where are they going to back up? They're going to back up in Max driveway and all those places. That's going to be a real issue. So if you actually do these trails and you do a drop off, you might want to put a sign down here where they say drop off, so they can kind of do the circle and come back here and park their cars. Otherwise, it's going to be a real mess up in there, especially with the kind of traffic that these trails pull in. I mean, come up to the end of it, you can sit on our porch for a day after day, and Mom will bring you iced tea. But see the traffic that goes over there. And then people will park in your parking spots. You're gone, you know, someplace for a day, you come back, there's people already in your spots on the side of the road. I know that the marshal is, he's trying that as best he can, and we call when we can. But it's easier to turn around stuff up in here than it is up in here. This could be a real mess. So those are our only concerns.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Gordon Wines, and I am probably the only person not living in Green Mountain Falls that lives at Chiquita Park. But I am a member of the Trails Committee, and the reason I joined the Trails Committee is back in 2005, I was, thanks to Uncle Sam, given 3 weeks to get my butt out of Europe, move my family someplace in the United States, and my wife, a non-American, instantly selected Colorado Springs. So we had very little time to find a place to live, but we found a place at Chiquita Park, then we found a place in Green Mountain Falls. And I just want to tell you guys, one thing I envy people in Green Mountain Falls, you actually can have ordinances to protect your roads from people parking in front of your house. I live in Chiquita Park, unincorporated El Paso County, on Pacabo Road, and there's a lot of people that like to hike up the Astor Trail, and they will park the cars right in front of my house, much to the chagrin of my wife, to which I have to tell her they're on a public road, a public easement, they have as much right to park here as we do. So you guys are in a very fortunate position that you actually have ordinances that allow you to restrict the public from parking on, well, basically public roads. I don't have that privilege. Now, why did I join the Green Mountain Falls Trail Commission? Well, a few years ago when I was retired, and taking my then 6-year-old daughter up on a hike up the then undeveloped Crystal Trail, I was thinking to myself, somebody ought to do something about the awful condition of this trail. A week later at Bronx Days, I see Dick Bratton out there with the Trails Committee, and I go, oh, I'm going to give this guy a piece of my mind. To which he says, we need every volunteer we can get. Please join our committee, or be a member of our work days, which I did. And if anybody's gone to Crystal Trail recently, they realize it's a wonderful trail to take your family up. It's beautiful. And I was so enthused with it that I actually stuck around and became a member of the Trails Committee. So today I want to tell you why the Dewey Mountain Trail is such a good deal for Green Mountain Falls. Of the 8 established trails we have here in Green Mountain Falls, only 2 of them go up to the ridgeline. And if any of you are hikers, you know you want a destination, you want a cardiovascular experience, and we only have the Crystal Trail and the Catamount Trail that'll get you up there, unless some of you are really dangerous and go up the old Catamount River, and that probably requires pitons and a pickaxe. Dewey Mountain would be an addition to that trail. Now, some people say we don't need additional trails. Hey, that's true. We don't need music, we don't need art, we don't need to live in nature. I like spaghetti and meatballs, but I'm not going to eat it every night. A third additional trail that would give us probably the best vista of Green Mountain Falls, looking down the Ute Pass Valley, would be wonderful. And having tried to take my kids, who are right now ages 10 and 11, up the Crystal and the Catamount Trail in the fall, if any of you've tried it, you know it's difficult because you got these little rivulets that create glaciers because we live in a trail on the side of the mountain. Look at Dewey Mountain. Is it snow-free year-round? No. Is it snow-free way more than every other trail we have up here? Absolutely. So this trail would be a welcome addition. And as you all know, we have got private businesses that count on tourists coming up here. And a Dewey Mountain Trail would make one more, far more appealing trail to these people that come up, hike the trails, and then come down to the Mucky Duck, the Blue Moose, or the Pantry, and have their breakfast, lunch, or dinner, pumping money right back into this community. So this trail, I believe, would be a real big advantage. And I think we also need to keep in mind the founding fathers of Green Mountain Falls. They were trail builders. They were all about public interest. And this trail would be such a wonderful addition to that wonderful system of trails we have that unfortunately have some limited usage because they're in the shadows. This would open up a great hiking experience for so many people for so many days. And I know that there's some people that go, well, not on my property. We're not talking about anybody's private property. This is a gift from Chris Cassidy. He wants it to be developed for trails. We're looking at trailheads on public right-of-ways. So I don't see how we're infringing on anybody's private property. I would be offended if we did, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about what's best for this community, developing this wonderful infrastructure of trails. And the great thing about trails is infrastructure goes, it's free. I mean, the Trails Committee, and I've heard the comment about litter. I kind of take offense to that because I actually walk the trails and pick up litter myself. A lot of our trail committee members do that. A lot of hikers do that because your average hiker is not abandoned. They're good people. They don't come up from Colorado Springs and go, let's find Green Mountain Falls and go crash the woods. Are there going to be a few bad apples? Sure. That's humanity. But this is something that we can control. I personally believe the vast majority of people do obey signs. And if that wasn't true, we wouldn't put speed limits anywhere. I mean, the vast majority of people are good people. And we shouldn't hide from them, and we should celebrate them, and we should welcome them to this community and pull the money out of their pockets when they come down the trail and spend money here because it just makes it a better community. So I certainly hope that for the town's best interest, for the value of everybody in the valley's real estate, that we keep on investing in the infrastructure up here. This is free infrastructure. Let's develop it and run with it. It's a great opportunity.
Thank you very much. Mr. Wise, I really appreciate your enthusiasm about, you're passionate about that. I appreciate that, so thank you very much. Okay, yes. Step up here. I think they can see you from this side as well, but if you want to stand.
All right, I'm going to okay. I'm Liz Ives. We live at 107904.
Can you scoot just a little bit that way?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So we live at the corner of Florence and Catamount, right next to Bob. We're absolutely in agreement with the trailhead being behind our property. We understand that will bring people up. That would probably be a place to park. But generally there's law enforcement vehicle in front of our house. That would deter that. And I don't have any problem letting people know they shouldn't come in front of my house.
Right.
Unless they're picking up and telling my neighbors that live up on Catamount. So Catamount's pretty steep. I do agree that is probably not an ideal road to be walking on. You do have to pay attention to it, but I've done Mount Dewey Trail and I think it's beautiful and I want other people to be able to enjoy it. So we are in agreement. Okay.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
I'm Scotty McGee. I live at 10825 Hondo Avenue, also known as the Nest. I'm a hiker. And the reason I wanted to live here was because of the trails. This is a hiking mecca. And the hiking draws people here. And yes, the restaurants benefit from it, but the main thing is the hikers benefit from it. They get out and they get to commune with nature and see things that you don't see any other way. Like I said, I live on Hondo, and it is like a main thoroughfare for hikers, getting to Thomas and Catamount Trail. And it doesn't bother me. I mean, I'll sit out on my front deck and I'll watch them walking by, and sometimes they're very entertaining. So I think to go ahead and get an established trailhead for Dewey so that people don't have to scramble trying to get to the trail would be wonderful. Also, in regards to the trails that we currently have not being maintained, I don't see that at all. I hike almost every day, and they're beautiful trails. And yeah, sometimes you'll get some incoherent person who drops a gum wrapper or something, and you pick it up. I've even found sweatshirts on the trail. So some of our really cool things too. But at any rate, I think that the hiking is what draws people here. So yes, I am definitely supportive of the trailhead.
This moving, and we've heard so many people in support of this, and to keep this moving. Is there anyone out here who has a differing opinion that we could hear from Ms. Hargrave. I didn't see you
Yeah.
from Ms.
I'm
Rosie.
Kimberly Hargrave, 10830 Aurora Street. Mine, for the longest time, has been the number one option for the trailhead, only 8 feet from my home. I've presented you with so much information as to why I think this is a really bad idea, so I'm not going to repeat all of that. I would say that there are two main issues here. One is, should there be a trail at all, this Dewey Mountain Trail? Should there be the trail? And number two, should there be a trailhead accessing that? So first of all, the trail itself. I received a copy of the Trails Committee minutes from Dick Bratton saying that all trails had been criticized in general, that we need trail supporters to attend our next meeting here in force to counter these accusations. Please come to stand up for our trails. I would like to say that having attended all the meetings, no one to my knowledge has said anything criticizing all trails in general. However, it is naive to think that trails come without some inherent problems. It's kind of like when you're raising children and they want a puppy, and yes, the puppy's fun, it's cute, but it comes with responsibilities. The same can be said of trails. So primarily in talking to the people in my neighborhood, the primary concern is fire danger. As we speak, we are under a red flag warning, and we have been all weekend, and we will be through Wednesday. KKTV and KRDO are posting what they call critical fire conditions and extreme fire behavior. We woke up yesterday morning to the smell of smoke from fires burning in New Mexico and Arizona. It was a very crude reminder of what happened at Waldo Canyon. At 1:15 p.m. today, a grass fire in Whitefield Security consumed 3 acres. Arson is suspected. We are still reeling from the Waldo Canyon fire, and there are no arrests. At that time, all of our trails were closed, considered to be prime locations for either accidental or intentional fires. The Dewey Trail sits on a steep slope, formerly ordinanced as 5A, meaning it is prone to very strong winds, and it is filled with dry fuels. The Environmental Defense Fund out of Boulder, Colorado, says that all their models are telling us to expect in the very near future extremes never seen before. They call it climate disaster whiplash, meaning we will be alternating between flooding, drought, and wildfires. Is putting a new trail in really the smartest thing that we can do with this land, or is it really the most stupid thing we can do? This land should not be turned into a questionable profit center at the expense of our safety and our wilderness. Recreation should not trump preservation, caution, and sound reason, just so a good time can be had by some. Meanwhile, the trailhead. The Trails Committee has obviously used the past month to bolster their cause by recruiting advocates instead of working on really solving the problems that we have been presenting for over a month. They ignore our valid concerns such as illegal parking, as well as enforcement on a limited budget and with a limited staff. 1. They have still not obtained easements from either the Rawson or the Everly property owners granting the use of the Dewey Trail. where it substantially crosses their land. So why are we arguing over a trailhead that might actually access a trail to nowhere? And finally, just out of curiosity, without naming names, is it ethical or a conflict of interest when a Trails Committee member makes a sizable donation to our town while simultaneously having a proposal on the table?
That's out of line.
May I
I'm
respond?
sorry, I didn't name names.
Okay, let's wait just for a second. Thank you. Yeah.
Willie Alexander, 10845 Myrtle Street. I'm also on the planning commission. There's a planning commission when the Trails Committee approached us for approval to put in the trailhead at the top of Catamount. Let me say right off the bat that I'm in favor of access. I do have some concerns. At the presentation that the Trails Committee made to us, we were informed that this was going to be a mountain bike friendly trail. As it has turned out, that's not possible. I believe that was known at the time the presentation was made. At the last open hearing, it was pointed out there were parking issues. And again, at tonight's meeting, there have been parking issues. And at the previous agenda item for the board, there was an email that I forwarded to you in Mountain Falls Town Hall, where a property owner was speaking about trail hikers parking on Hondo. And this is at the 11135 Hondo Avenue. In the comprehensive plan, there are 6 different references to lack of code enforcement or needing code enforcement. It would be my recommendation now that you table the idea of having a trail access until the city has the resources to do code enforcement and to require a well-defined plan, much the same as if somebody wanted to build a structure. They can't say, I want to build a garage. I don't know what it's going to look like, but I want to build it. Require a clearly identified plan for this trail before you approve it. Thank you.
Something you wanted to say?
My name's Claudia Lee, and I've lived in Mountain Falls about 40 years, but that doesn't quite count for all of it, because I've come here as a summer person, as from a village, and lived next door to the place I became a summer person. I'm from the other end of town that we're talking about here, but I think I've got something to say because I'm near one of the most traveled trailheads we have. I'm at the bottom of the Thomas Trail on that end. The trailhead's at the top of Boulder. It doesn't go across my property. In fact, you have to come across the creek to get on my property. And we have found that the trail access up there has been so wonderful, we have made a bridge to encourage that. We have not ever had anyone abuse our property. We might have had a candy wrapper. That's the most I can think of. But ours is a different situation, and they're not at our front door or our back door. The property's big enough, they're a little farther away. But I feel better for the trails, mainly for the fire issue we're talking about. I think the number of people who do arson are small. They're important.
Only took one.
It only took one, right. But I think there's a lot more on the trails that are keeping that down. And that one, that nut, or more than one, they find a place. They find a place. But I have a much stronger feeling that place isn't in my backyard when it's a publicly used trail with a lot of eyes on it. And I think
How many eyes?
also it aids firefighters and other personnel to get into an area to patrol it and have a better look.
Laura Morgan, 7265 Catamount Street. So we're the house that Dick mentioned, the number 2 kind of trail that went right behind. I'm happy to hear that it's number 2 and not number 1. Just from the safety perspective, kind of like you mentioned, it goes right back and there's nobody.
I need you to move the
To the corner. From the safety perspective, it's not between any houses. It just goes straight behind, like through scrub oak, probably close to that 8 feet, like Kimberly mentioned. So thank you for making that number 2. I've noticed kind of hiking a lot of the other trails, that almost all of the trails either go, the access points go between houses. So there's a front looking at the back, like it would be on the East Myrtle one, or on Hondo that there's enough of a natural slope and barrier that it's not so much of an issue, whereas it's very level and it would literally be right there. So I wouldn't mind if that went down to number 4 on the list, but as long as it's not number 1. And all the other 3 options are okay with me and Jason. We've talked about them. I know the trail's been in use for 100 years, something like that. So it's not really, I don't think it's an issue of use or not use. It's been used, it's going to keep being used. It's how well is it maintained and structured, and being the age that we are, we'd love to have another 30 years of use up there. The kind of the East Myrtle option, I guess, we think is the best use of the land. It looks like it, from where the purchase is, that it encompasses the most of the property. So that would be our kind of vote, if we will. And the second, what David said with the drop-off circle, that sounds like a great idea to have that sign posted or something to that effect, because it would probably be our driveway that people would be backing into. Our friends spin out in it all the time, so we don't need a lot of strangers kicking up our dirt. But I'm sure it will happen. There's not much we can do about it, but some kind of encouraging the drop-off circle would be great. And I was wondering about we talked a bit at the last meeting about some of the private property easement stuff, and I don't know like the legalese of it. If there's something about if a trail's been used for a property for a certain X number of years, if there's
Adverse possession.
yeah, and if it's been a horse trail for 100 years, like does that grant anything, or I don't
Only
know.
if it's conflicted.
I'm just asking. Okay. So that's it from 7265.
I would just like to state that because I am very sensitive to the fire and safety concerns, because I have a house up here, I am just as.
You were already out.
3 minutes.
Okay.
I thought this was rebuttal. Is it? No, I'll sit down.
Yeah, probably the best thing would be to sit down.
Okay.
Yeah, because we've heard.
Enough.
Yeah. Thank
I just
you.
wanted to address what Chief Bradley and Fire Marshal Murphy had to say about the names.
Okay, well, thank you, just to keep it moving. Okay, anyone else?
You mentioned that Chris Cassee would be, and I have a letter from Liz Eichmann, that they would be, the foundation people would be coming to visit this summer, and that the plan for the trail was indefinitely, according to them, indefinitely postponed. And so my question is, do you have any information about when they will actually be here so they can look things over?
Yes, Chris Cassee will be here at the latest the 3rd week of June and through the 1st week of July. And he personally wants to, with his staff and members of the historic Green Mountain Falls Foundation, actually go and look at these trailhead sites. We as the Trails Committee have given them in writing 3 times now that we will not start any construction until they decide the best place for a trailhead.
Because they seem a little uncertain about what they actually want to do with it. I mean, you keep saying that they want this land to be used as trails.
Yes, they
But
do.
I'm not getting that impression from what I've gotten from them. Do you have something in writing from
Yes,
Chris saying that?
Yeah,
Could we see that?
okay, okay.
Okay, can y'all talk after?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have it in writing that that's his desire.
Exchange all that
We
information.
have it in writing.
that. Okay. because I'm
It's in
not
a
getting
press
that.
release.
Okay. Okay, so you guys will look up afterwards, that'd be great. Thank you. Okay, any other comments, further comments about this? I know that this is just such a passionate thing in our community, and so I really appreciate all the people who have spoken and everything. If there are no other comments, then we're gonna close this public hearing and go back and take it to the board. So the public hearing is closed at 8:05. And, okay, board, so we have heard a lot of great things this evening. Our citizens really have an opinion about this, but I want to start with you guys to see what you have to say about this, anything in particular that stood out to you. Let's start with, you're on the end, trustee Gardner. You're an easy place to start. Do you want to start the conversation, or would you prefer someone else to start the conversation?
I'm not a hiker, okay? But I'm a trail rider, so they go together as far as I'm concerned. So I like trails, and even though I go 4 legs and not 2 legs, no matter what they are, I like them. And I respect them, I clean up, even sometimes if the little lady has an accident, we clean up in certain spots where people actually hike. So I do like the hiking and trails.
Trustee Stephen.
I think it's important to have the trails open, and I think that's a unique opportunity to evaluate how to best get the best access to Mount Dewey. I appreciate the Trails Committee's research and consideration of all the different options. And as someone earlier stated, it's not a matter of if the trail will be used, it's how it will be used and how it will be maintained. So I think that the trailhead options for our consideration are important, and I think that ultimately this board should decide where that trailhead should be located. And many of the concerns that I'm hearing are addressed in other areas in our town ordinances and laws, as well as other areas, which are very important issues. Don't mean to neglect them, but that's a different situation than enforcement of our existing laws. Personally, I kind of like the third choice of the Myrtle Street West, but that's really what it's just my personal preference.
Trustee Cook.
Interesting issue. In this town, and I probably have the least time in this town compared to most of you know, one about that, I've been here for 9 years. But we all share the same situations with the way the trails are based here. We all have people passing our houses, we all have people parking in our yards. I've had people pull in and park in the loop. I live on Building. I've had them pull in my loop and just park right in the middle of my driveway. Because the sign on our house is falling waters, and I think that's where it is. You know, and it's something to deal with. And we do have, as right now, we do have limited resources, but I have noticed too that the parking lot down by the pool and by the park is full. There are fewer and fewer people, it seems to me, over the years, trying to park up the streets. And I think it is because of recidivism. We always have the new people coming around and doing it. In this unique community, we all have the same fear of fire regardless of which trail it's on, or in town. We suffer just as much in town with some of our overgrown areas as we do on the trails. When somebody pulls a cigarette out their car window. So that's just a constant thing that we all have to be aware of all the time. I am interested and concerned, I would like to talk to Chief Bradley about the possibility of volunteer people when we do start the trail up. If there is an intern group that we can rely on to bring more volunteer enforcement up to start with, because I think the beginning will be important for that. From Mr. Bratton, I would like to see, again, a more comprehensive layout and approval along the entire route, and even into the national forest, that they know what's going on, to see that they are in agreement with what is there and their part of the trail, and how we would support trails through the national forest, as far as that goes. But I think it's something that this town is known for. I think it is something for the good of the whole. And so I am certainly looking at an approval for it, but again, if it's, I would hold the reservation that if we have problems, if it's not enforceable, that we look at it again, you know, as to whether it can stay open. I see it as Mr. Casillas wanting something done with his land. I think that is just as important as, you know, for the people around. I do want to know about Mr. Patron's option, who that affects, how many people that affects too. Because there's another, you know, there's more potential there too. You know.
Just the trail builders.
Who is it?
Just the trail builders, the only one in effect. It's already on town property and it's within a couple of 100 yards of.
Right, but as it loops around, whose property is right there behind it, things like that. And if it stays on the correct property. So I would like that, you know, also investigated, but I'm still in favor of, you know, being able to use Green Mountains for a trail.
Thank you. Trustee Ellis?
Thank you. I share Trustee Cook's concern about the enforcement. And I think that Mr. Alexander stated it pretty clearly on this, is that we definitely need to have a plan for this, or be part of the overall thing that we have for this enforcement. If this is not clear at this time, then I think that a table would be in order for us to get a clear understanding of this. But I am concerned about it, what I've heard on this. I have a strong concern about the enforcement, as well as you know, the different opinions on the alternatives. Let's see if we can boil this down a little better.
Thank you. Trustee Bugs?
I'm backing up to this trailhead myself. I've hiked it and enjoyed it, and I've talked to most of the neighbors. Right now, I don't think that there's a decision to make, because it sounds like Mr. Casillas coming in next couple of weeks. Looks like he is going to be the first step in deciding what trailhead he wants. It's his property, or at least the Green Mountain Falls property. So, not Green Mountain Falls Historic Foundation property. So, while I think the Trails Committee has done a good job of supplying options for him to come and take a look at in a short period of time, I think it's definitely needs to be tabled until he comes up with an idea of what he would like, and then see what that affects.
Trustee Quinn down there?
Yeah, I would echo a lot of the comments I heard. I would like to hear from the property owner, Mr. Casillas, and make sure that that plan is solid. I don't think the issue is so much about the trails on the open space area, or on the granted area, because that's really not anything in our purview. The access is what we're really concerned about. I did hear a lot of support from immediate people close to the first option. But I don't think that we're there yet. I think we're getting closer, and I would like to see some formal address on from the marshal and from the fire district to get their thoughts. I haven't really heard from them, but I do agree enforcement of parking this is an issue. I do have concerns about fire, obviously, but I would probably support tabling this for a while until we can hear from Mr. Casillas and from our public safety.
I appreciate everyone who voiced their opinions tonight. what really struck out and stood out to me were the property owners whose homes are right there, and they were really in favor of this trail, and that is huge to me. We're a hiking family, and we love the trails, and I do appreciate the Trails Committee and the upkeep, because I use the trails often, and they're in great condition in my opinion. So I really do appreciate that. What Trustee Cook said here about we are known as a community with our trails, so it's not something that is just new. But I do have concerns. Ms. Hargrave brought up the easements from the private property owners back there that,
Awesome.
yeah, that was something. And Mr. Alexander, what he said too, to table this until we just gather more information and have more of a plan on what it's gonna look like. And hear from Mr. Cassie himself, I think that's huge. I think it's really in the best interest to, we're moving forward, but we're not there yet. And with such an important decision affecting our community, I think it's important for us, to move forward slowly and make the best decision after we talk to Mr. Cassie or hear from him. And I do appreciate the Trails Committee again for all they've done to get us this far. So, any comments with that? With that said, then, I think, are we in agreement then, board, to table this, hold off on this a little bit longer, gather more information, get more, the Trails Committee heard some of those concerns about drop-off signs and parking, maybe coming and how will you address that? Stay on trail, when you're up there, this is private property, making sure that the hikers realize that this is private property and it goes through,
Contacting the National Forest.
Yeah, something like that. So just those ideas as the Trails Committee continues to work through this. So
Move to table till August 19th.
August 19th.
And I would think July 1st, and if Mr. Cassie is going to be here, and let him come, and at that point, move forward or make a decision with the owner in attendance.
Okay, so if he's able to attend our meeting on July 1st, to share with us making more of a decision in the July 1st meeting.
We're talking a lot on his behalf, everybody,
Yeah.
it'd be good to have
Yeah.
him talk on his own behalf, or a representative.
A representative. Okay. So, is that, Trustee Stevens, that's cool with you?
So the motion is to table until.
July 1st,
I would suggest the 15th to give everybody, again, involved, a full month to get the information we need to make sure everybody's contacted. But that would just be me. But I'm fine
with the July 1st.
I think he'll be gone.
Okay, so then that would go.
So we rely on volunteers, so it would be helpful to have a decision, yes or no.
So July 1st.
And July 1st, we don't have to make a decision if there's not enough information at that point, at least we haven't heard.
Right. But you do give Mr. Cassie a chance to address the board, which is important.
Right. So,
We can make it an item on the first.
right, an agenda item for the 1st. Mr. Bratton, can you reach out to Mr. Cassie then? And invite him as well to attend our meeting, or a representative on his behalf. And,
I'll second it.
you second? So we have a first and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor, vote by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, thank y'all very much. Good conversation. Okay. This time, item number 6. Okay, guys, we're gonna continue our meeting, so would you please leave quietly? Okay, at this time, we will move into public. We are still in our meeting, would you please leave quietly? We will move into item number 6, which is public input. This is the time, please remember, this is the time for you to address the board with items that are not on the agenda and not a time for the board to discuss with you. Please stand, state your name, and limit your comments to 3 minutes. And if we need to put something on the agenda next time, we certainly can. So, is there any public comment? Yes. You can stand right where,
Here over there.
right there, please, so we can see you on camera.
My name is Matt Patrone. I still live at Harvey Street. I have several questions I would like to have answered. I don't need to have the answers now, but I think that some of the answers should be made public. At your first meeting, that was a meeting you were sworn in. You passed 7 resolutions on the objection of the town attorney. I'd like to know if there's been any input from the attorney with regards to these objections and any resolution, unintended, to the differences about the 7 resolutions. I think the town deserves to know the outcome. Number 2, one of those resolutions was to authorize the mayor to negotiate with the former marshal about his employment with the town. What was the outcome? And 3, since it's a financial matter that affects the town's taxpayers, what was decided about the marshal's salary? 4, I have a hard time reading my own writing. Okay. Why hasn't there been a marshal's report for 2 months? 5, at least one citizen demanded to know the number of arrests, stops, warnings, etc. from the sheriff's department when they were doing law enforcement. Why not now? 6, by now, I think most residents are dissatisfied with the condition of the dirt roads. When can we expect maintenance commensurate with what we're used to? Does anyone know or care that dry grading does not work on mountain roads? I'm not trying to take anything away from the county. I know they're a professional organization, but they just don't have the experience. Has anybody thought about the idea of hydrating the roads before they're graded and then compacting them after? I think that would go a long way towards improving the condition. That hasn't been done. That hasn't much of anything been done. That's it for me.
Thank you. Okay. Any other public comment? Yes.
I'm Jake Blackman, 10750 Olathe. Just a piece of information for everyone. I am a rock hound. I'm out in BLM, Forest Service, everything. Weekly, I see rangers weekly, daily, and they will enforce any code that we have. Many of the places I go, we cross private property. The rangers are extremely careful of that. In fact, if you read the ranger requirements, they are twice as stringent as any that we have proposed here.
You guys are so screwed.
Okay, is there any more public comment?
I understand. Once again, I enjoyed the privilege of being able to help the community see these meetings. I was going to put this to the trustees. My concern for in the new building, if there has been consideration for wiring for the video streaming, and if not, can we make that a requirement? And then also asking the board for maybe opening a marriage registry
between the community and the board or whatever, for items that the town hall may need that really hasn't been budgeted. Thank you.
I can answer one of those questions.
Where do we sign up
The
on
new
the
building, I'm sorry. I'm Rob Seaver, I'm the architect of the town hall, and 10680 Florence. The new building is wired for streaming and sound. Basically, the chamber has a place where we can project from the ceiling. It has 4 outlets and things like that, so you can have microphones and things like that. It's more than just streaming, it's getting good sound quality too. So I think you're covered, but as we go through it, we'll continuously review that. Tyler and I, as the owners rep, will definitely be looking at that stuff. But I think you're good.
Awesome, thank you. Yes.
Have you been to a county commissioners meeting?
I have.
They have their own little computer there.
Yep.
They have an overhead projector.
That's what you have.
They have that?
We got notepads. You have an overhead projector, you have a projection screen, you have a podium.
Great.
So you have a pointer, you can stand at the podium and do what you want on your laptop. You'll have, anyone on the board can have a laptop and project as well. It'll be just like you've seen in the city of Colorado Springs.
You're a good architect. You thought about it already.
Thank you.
Moving on up in the world. Good job, thank you. Any other public comment? Okay, if there is no other further comment, we will move right along to item number 9. Carla has waited patiently. Thank you for waiting. You're just right back there. It was informative. Yes. So I just ask that you step up here to the corner. That would be great. And this is a Blue Moose application for temporary modification of premises. So I'll just hand this over to Carla and you can go for it.
Okay, you all have papers in front of you, I think, I hope, with this on there as well.
Carla?
Yes.
And move back.
Perfect.
I've been watching this all night, I don't have it down. All right, I will just read to you what I presented to them. Blue Moose is requesting permission to temporarily enlarge the size of the present patio to better accommodate visitors that are coming into Green Mountain Falls for our special events and festivals throughout the summer. The additional space will allow us to, better serve our guests that are coming in to support our town. Last year, we had to turn away several people for lack of space. I believe if we accommodate more guests, it would benefit the town throughout the full year, as the customers will be pleased and repeat and bring their business back in. The dates that I'm requesting are July 4th, July 19th for the car show, August 2nd for Rump Days. And the times would be from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. The size of the temporary addition is roughly 20 by 40 feet. It's directly east of the current patio and would attach to our stairway that leads to our patio that allows everybody to have full service of the bar, the bathroom facilities, and all of the restaurant opportunities there. I will provide extra staff to make sure all customers are provided for. Absolutely no alcohol would be removed from the premises. The area would be fenced off. And a temporary fence, at this point I'm looking at like the orange plastic roll fencing that they have set up over there right now that's around the swings that they're setting up, which when you go to most festivals, that's what they usually use because it is a temporary piece. And it is approved by the alcohol board as a temporary fence for fencing material. I would supply all of the provided, or all of the materials needed. All electricity and water will be at the expense of Blue Moose. So we are just trying to figure out how to get it. We just think it's a great idea. We did send a lot of people away last year and feel like the longer we keep them in town, that gives them opportunity to hang out for a little while and then go back over and look at some of the vendors that are presenting their wares. You know, if they couldn't get in to any of the restaurants, they just said, well, we're gonna leave town. And I just feel like the longer we keep them here, the more enjoyment they will have and the great, experience, and it will bring them back. So that's all I'm trying to do.
Mr. Crosby.
I'm gonna preface this with that your town clerk that doesn't exist, and we have stand-ins. I finally have your file. So I'm gonna put you on the spot, and if you don't have an answer, that's fine, because I will tell you I don't know the answers, because I haven't been through this yet. But it looks like there's something in here, that the town actually granted a 600-foot right-of-way, which is.
That's where the porch is now.
Is that the existing patio?
I would go up with him because I am not sure.
That's existing.
So.
I was part of that project, yeah, that's where the existing concrete patio is at. It does not include the sidewalk, it's just from your railing back to the building wall. The building wall is the edge of the right of way on the Blue Moose, or on the,
So the existing patio is in the town's right of way, correct?
It is.
Do you know if, yeah, anyone that has the answer, because everyone in this room has probably been here longer than I have, so do you know if this agreement has been changed between the town? I'm kind of looking at you since your signature's on the bottom.
Oh.
What? So,
it gets back to your administration.
in the interest of time, I'll bring the board up to speed. I've spoken with Carla. It's my understanding that the town wants to at least figure out if there's a way that we can do this. Colorado has a dual licensing system, so the town has to grant a liquor license and the state has to grant one. So if she's, and to add more hiccup to that, if she's gonna change her premise at all, which is why I'm looking at this, which shows, her bar, and we're trying to figure out if this is part of the premise or not. In other words.
It is.
It is.
It is?
Yes.
So you currently have a liquor license that licenses cars that own property.
Yes.
Yeah.
So.
There's an easement. We did that, we achieved that through an easement.
Well, so there's an easement after this permit?
It's not an easement, it's a revocable permit.
That's correct, yeah, right.
I would hope so, you signed it.
What's it say?
It says Charlie Street.
It's kind of like a private judge.
So it looks like hopefully, there's a way that we can grant a further easement. We're looking forward, hopefully Carla wants to stay here, hopefully that next year we want to do the same thing. So looking forward at saying, she doesn't want to come back here and bug you, and I don't want to come back and explain this to you again. So, looking forward at that, if we can change her license to include that area, again, through the state and through our process, you'd have to hold a hearing. This hasn't been noticed for a hearing properly, so we can't hold that hearing tonight. You are allowed to hold a hearing during a special meeting, so not a special election, but a special meeting. So that's another option that the board may want to do. I'm going to go through more of this file tonight now that I have it, so I'll check it out and leave whatever collateral your clerk wants, so that I can take originals to documents that usually don't take to attorneys. And I'll review it to see if there's some other way, because timing is an issue now. It takes a little bit for the state. I mean, you guys can schedule a special meeting whenever you'd like, hold a hearing, almost whenever you'd like.
Does it have to be a dual reading?
No, because it's a hearing. It's not an ordinance. But we might get to that. So to the extent that it's an option to increase this, the board would need to hold a special meeting and move very quickly to get this to the state, to get it back. I'm not sure if there's something in here that may provide another option. So I would suggest that you allow me the opportunity to look at it either late tonight, since your meetings haven't gone nearly as late, or tomorrow morning, and coordinate with the mayor and the applicant as to kind of what to do next, to see if we don't have to go to the state, we don't have to come and do a special meeting, I think that's probably the best. If we have to do it this time, in order to not have to do it next time, that might be the second best. And there may be a third option that frankly I don't know because I haven't reviewed it all yet, so.
Is the state process different for a temporary extension of that liquor license? Because it's a little, if it was like a permanent thing, there's a lot of time involved. Like you're saying, but I'm just wondering
And that's the
if there's
problem.
a shortcut.
To alter the premises at all, which some people here are saying includes the patio, but essentially to alter any of this, which is where you can have your alcohol that you purchased from her business, and because it's not Vegas and you can't walk down the street with it. If you increase that area at all, you have to get prior written consent by the local, to the board, because it's the liquor license and the state. So that's where we're running into.
Is
an
this
issue.
what you did though? Is that what you did?
So that would be the correct paperwork. She's.
That's what you were told,
She's
I
doing
know,
what
I
she's
just
told.
know what people tell me.
I don't think she's doing anything. I don't think she's trying to push the envelope at all. But I don't want the town to say, yeah, go for it, and then make the state mad, or to essentially have her, step
Did
out.
you
on
see
her.
what she submitted?
Yeah, I have a copy of that, and that may be what we end up having to do, which is essentially what you would review, that and all supporting documents, which really, there shouldn't be a whole lot, to amend her licensed premises and include that. Now, what I'm saying is, if we do this correctly, and hopefully she wouldn't have to come back and do it, it'd be similar to her right now. In December, I don't think you use your patio very frequently. So you kind of close it down seasonally and then you reopen it. Liquor licenses work like that. So you can close down a section of your premise and open it again without coming back here.
Right.
So if we set her up correctly,
Right.
then next summer when she wants to do it, she can just do it.
No,
She can
But
get
the
the permit.
The converse, though, to what you're thinking, is what would restrict her from doing it every day?
Well, and
Right, she's
That's-
just requesting like special use for special occasions. And the patio stays open all year, we don't have a separate, we close the patio.
Well, and to alleviate the concern of going in and doing it without the town's approval essentially, that's what's in the document that is found, which is the revocable permit. So essentially, if you can come in and say, I want to do these same dates, we fill in the dates, you guys review it, we go. We don't have to go to the state level.
Gotcha.
You guys still maintain control of the permit. So if there's complaints of people walking down a gazebo with beers in their hands and coming back, things like that, which I'm not saying, I'm saying that, if there's complaints of that, the board still has the opportunity to review it. The way it's designed is so that you don't give someone a liquor license and say, okay, here's where you are allowed to have alcohol, and that they don't do this without coming before you. So, you'll have one more safeguard because you're allowing her to go into the town right away, so you could revoke her permit for that. You'd have to hold hearings and do things like that, so you want to be a little bit careful of it. But hopefully there's something that in the future can make this a little less burdensome, at least on the applicant with going through the state, or hopefully on the applicant and the board with reviewing it, that she can come in and say these are the days I want. It can be an administrative permit and go. Like I said, there may be one more option that she won't have to go to the state and do that because as Rob said, it is time consuming. So if she does, that's why I want to, my suggestion would be that I review it and then touch base with the mayor. Can either say, yeah, we should hold a special meeting and hold a hearing and get moving on it so she can get her permit, her license as quickly
Do
as
you
possible.
think, Mr. Cobb, do you think we're gonna need a special meeting, period? Because if we do, maybe we can talk about whether or not we wanna schedule a special meeting right now and plan it, instead of having to wait.
It's easier to cancel them than it is to find a date to do it.
So, okay,
Absent something else in the file that, like I said, I just got at the beginning of the meeting, my guess is that we have to do that.
okay.
So,
Is there a provision for doing a special event permit if it wasn't tied in with this liquor license? Would
Yeah,
that be a whole different ballgame?
I talked to Carla about that. The beauty of that is in theory it works really well, except that you can only hold one liquor license. So Carla has another entity that, she.
But then the alcohol couldn't be shared, right, by liquor license.
It'd be like going between the Lucky Duck and the Blues. Those
Yeah.
are two different licenses, you can't cross that line.
You cannot change classes and pour it. So the board might want to consider that.
Okay. Board, your thoughts on this?
During these events, there's no reduction in parking or anything. This doesn't impact anything like that.
Parking's closed down during, most like during those dates.
Any other comments from the board?
I think it'd be great to see.
Rock days, we depend on that side for people to park. We close down the parking on the east side of Lake Street, we leave the parking alone, first come, first served, on the south side. So that would impact the number of spaces available for Rock Day.
How many spaces are there?
About 4 spaces, roughly.
That's roughly 4 spaces.
On the other hand, from a bigger perspective, Rock Day would probably like to have additional service for Rock Day attendees. So it might be worth giving up 4 parking spaces. That's a quality decision.
Okay, board, I propose that we look at the calendar to get a special meeting so we can get this going for Carla. And worst case, Carla, maybe it would be not July 4th, we couldn't do it, but
Right,
maybe.
because I realized that
Yes,
was very close.
it's very close, but maybe have this ready for the July 19th and Rock Day, and then have it set, so maybe next year, you know what I'm saying? Right. Get the groundwork laid correctly for you. So,
Could we possibly get some input from the Bronx community?
from the Rock Day committee?
Just about that issue. Well, I don't.
Yeah. But that would be at the special meeting.
Right, yes,
Yeah.
I would suggest that.
We'd have to weigh the laws, spaces versus the service to Rock Day distance. That's a quality decision that the committee should vote on. On the calendar. For the, Rock Day is the first Thursday?
Yes.
First Saturday, or run
Yeah, Rock Day.
So we don't meet,
first Thursday.
we don't meet until July.
July 3rd.
Not third.
I think the Rock Day committee would probably would agree with whatever decision the board makes, since you would understand the impacts. I don't think you really need the Rock Day to get into this. Quite frankly, you don't want to make it enemy, so.
July, okay, so we're looking June 17th. You guys, what is your schedule like? Mr. Cobb, how much time do you need to look at that and?
To do that, I mean, you have to post it 24 hours in advance, so.
Okay.
That 24 hours should be sufficient for me to prepare for anything that we need to look at.
Okay. What does your schedule look like now, guys?
I'm good this week and off next week, but
I can make it work this week, if need be. You can too? Trustee Stevens, you have a busy calendar.
Thursday and Friday.
Okay,
This week is real bad, but next week, so I can find out who's
okay. What about you, Trustee Gardner?
Thursday and Friday evening or afternoon, late evening or afternoon, okay.
Trustee Klein,
I'm hoping I think I could attend this week,
this week?
towards the end of the week, so
Okay.
next week.
What does Saturday look like to you? Is that better for you? No, not Saturday. Okay, not Saturday. Sunday? Depends on what you need. Oh, okay. Depending on. So Thursday or Friday? Thursday or Friday, would the after late, you're just not,
Neither will.
another, okay, but we would still have a quorum, we'd miss you. We'd miss you, I'm missing you already. So anyway, but, okay, Friday or Thursday, trustee Quinn? I mean, Thursday or Friday, sorry, Thursday or Friday?
I would say
Friday?
Either way.
You have to choose one, because it's gonna go with three rules.
Actually, I'm good either way, so whatever anybody needs.
Okay,
Yeah, I'm good for Friday. Yeah.
you said Friday,
I'm there for Thursday.
Thursday.
Majority.
Thursday,
What time?
what time Thursday?
Same time? So
7, 6? Can we do 6?
5:30?
5:30 on Thursday? Can you do 5:30 on Thursday? Okay,
How about you?
5:30 on
Yeah,
Thursday.
good.
5:30 on Thursday. Okay, is there a motion?
Second.
Okay, there's a motion, second, discussion. Okay, we will be holding a special meeting, where's Carla? We'll be holding a special meeting about this Thursday at 5:30 here.
Take a vote first.
Oh, wait, okay, any further discussion? No? All those in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
And Mayor, the motion was made by, and the second was.
That was you, right? Thank you. Tyler, okay, Tyler, got it.
Okay.
Thank you.
And unanimous?
Okay, Cindy, you're not Cindy. Do you have any, experience in posting a special election or special meeting?
We should talk after.
Okay.
There's a couple of easy things and.
Okay, okay,
It just needs to be done 24 hours in advance, so.
okay,
She's not here till Thursday, of course, so.
right.
Yeah, we'll need to do it before she gets here.
Cindy's not gonna be here Thursday.
Can we stay for just a minute?
Yeah, yeah, this evening? Okay, we'll talk. Okay, special meeting at 5:30 for, what is the title of that meeting then?
It'll actually be a hearing on, the alteration of a licensed premise.
Expansion of liquor license.
For the Blue Moon.
Hearing on expansion,
Alteration is what the,
hearing on alteration of
the Blue Moose, premises.
Blue Moose premises. Okay. Okay, perfect. Perfect, thank you. I think we're closer than we were, right? Thank you. Okay, thank you.
We're getting headway.
Okay, we are making headway. Thank you, Carla. We appreciate you and your business. Okay, and I just wanna say, pardon, I don't know that, I skipped over, you guys, I skipped over the municipal pool update and the update on the public works. And I didn't catch it, so
Oh, I thought you were just doing
I was
it,
doing
so
that
you
first.
should-
Oh, on purpose?
Yeah.
Sure, I did that on purpose. Yes, to get Carla going. So municipal pool update, trustee David Cook and myself. Trustee Cook, you wanna take that lead first?
It's up and getting ready to go.
Okay.
It has been completely redone. It was in pretty bad shape. And it has been updated. We have gone to the point of painting, something we should not have to do for a couple of years. So we'll be really good on that. It's full, heater's running, so as soon as it's warm, it'll open, so.
We also have a lifeguard here, Grant is here. Hi, Grant. He was not able to make it last time, so he wants to meet y'all and we thank you. You must be Mom.
My mom.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you.
Welcome, so,
Mom, would you like to state your concern that we talked about earlier?
Oh, I'm an architect also, and I just looked at the pool and looked at the pictures, and I saw the surround of the black paint epoxy around the edge of the pool. And my concern was the heat of the epoxy, absorbing the heat and maybe being too hot for the kids' feet. And also, I didn't know if there was a lot of grit put into the epoxy that would be slick. So I didn't know how that was specified, so
okay,
just maybe some concerns.
Yeah.
I don't have good answers, but we'll find out. I mean, we'll find out now about it.
Okay.
Rick was added to it, I don't know how much, as far as that goes. I don't know that it is absorbing, all paint, black, I agree with you, would be.
I did step in there, and there's a noticeable difference between the black paint heat and the concrete heat.
Okay, I'll have to look at that.
Okay?
And you have information on the paint, you can get it. Okay. Trying to think if there's anything else with the pool tentatively scheduled to open on Friday. Before I came to the meeting, we found out it's 66 degrees right now, and unfortunately the water level dropped. And so we're looking into as to why the water level dropped about a foot. And so we don't know what is happening there. So we have calls in to Manitou Guy to discuss that. Oh, that reminded me about the vacuum. Rory from Manitou suggested that we look at a vacuum system. What we've done in the past, we found out, is that there's an outside faucet with a big water hose that was like a fire hose that was attached to it that nobody could figure out what it did. And unfortunately, well, I'm glad Rory was there. And so he turned it on, and when he turned it on, it caused everything to go out. So it caused the pump to stop working. It caused the heater to go out, and that could ultimately damage our stuff. At the very least, you know, at the worst case, people would come in the next day and the water would be freezing cold, you know, so he suggested, what we found out was they would hook, that would be the vacuum system. So they would hook the pole to the big hose and they would vacuum, but it backwashes into our filter system, which if you compare these two things, that's very dangerous for our filter, and it could do undue stress on our filter and cause our filter to go out, and that would not be good because that's very expensive. And so he suggested we look into a vacuum, and it's like a robot type thing that you know what I'm talking about.
We use it at the Shine Mountain Pool.
Okay, and you put it at the bottom, the lifeguards could do it at night, and then it'll run, and then when they got there in the morning, they could, you know, it could be cleaned. And so he sent me information, and unfortunately I don't have that printed out. It's on my email, I could pass that along to you guys. But he suggested they're about $600, $700, and suggested that we invest in that. Bottom line is we really can't use that, that thing. Yeah, it's taped up right now and everything because we don't want to turn that on. So anyway, so I will forward you that information and see if we can figure that out. And that works well at the Shine Mountain thing. And it saves on man hours and lifeguard hours because they don't have to clean the pool, you know.
Yeah.
Most homeowners in Florida have them, they work great.
They do? Okay. So I think that should be something we look at, you guys.
Do we need it to open the pool?
Do we need it to open the pool? Well, how are we gonna?
Without a pool cover, it gets really, really messy.
So I would suggest we need a decision today.
Need a decision tonight. Okay, let me get this email pulled up, see if I have a little computer there. I could look at that email from him.
While you're doing that, can I
Yes.
overlap?
Yes.
Because one of the things we talked about last time was hours of the pool. Spoke with some of the lifeguards. They obviously they had some good ideas last time, and they were wanting to try some things, whether it stay open late, whether it start open up early for a lap swim, for different things. Looking at the budget and trying to put out an option to try and hit most of them without staffing at full levels. I put out a tentative idea on paper, and it would be Monday and Wednesday, open up at 9 instead of 10, and stay open until the current 6 o'clock. Tuesday and Thursday, open up at the current 10 and stay open until 7 o'clock. The lifeguards wanted to stay open until 8, and I would think Friday and Saturday go 10 to 8, and then Sunday 10 to 6. It hits a lot of different spots to see what interest there is. Is there lap swim interest? Is there late night interest? Will people want to stay out on the weekend? Will people come back after a thunderstorm if it closes down? Things like that, and that can all be moderated down the road. So that will probably fit within budget constraints without maxing out all the hours. And so
So do we wanna go with these hours now?
that's
Or
what
the
I'm
opening,
proposing.
And second year.
You're
What I propose?
Yeah. Okay, any further discussion on that? The money guy says it's okay. There you go. So just to reiterate then, Monday and Wednesday, open the pool at 9 to 6. Tuesday, Thursday, 10 to 7. Friday, Saturday, 10 to 8. And Sunday, 10 to 6. Sounds good? Okay. There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
One point that I think it's obvious, but I think it's really important to track hourly attendance and usage. It's a good point, now, you know, the best way.
Greg, we're gonna put that on you.
We have it at the same amount too.
Yeah. Okay.
And probably not just entry, but also, you know, on the hour, how many people actually get this up about helpful.
You do that? Do you happen to have a can you get a copy of the sheet you use from the other year and bring it and we can
Like
maybe?
the number of people, yeah, per lane or
Okay.
whatever.
So can you be in charge of getting that for us? That'd be great.
Yeah.
He thought school was out. He stood up.
Okay, so if you will bring that to us, that'd be great. This made me think also about money and the cost, and I think we were gonna discuss that. One of the lifeguards mentioned to me, since we are opening later, should that season pass amount go down a little bit because we're 2 weeks later?
I would suggest we keep it the same and hopefully stay open 2 weeks later, which was one of our initial goals.
Give longer hours.
Longer hours, yes.
Appreciate it.
So we're gonna leave the cost okay right now?
The hours that I put in were budgeted off of these numbers.
Okay, so we're gonna leave the cost okay. This email that I got from Mr. Cheney said, it says, Green Mountain Falls, dear Mayor Worthy and City Council, I'm writing this letter to bring your attention to a vacuum valve that is tied into the pool pump system. I have concerns over its use and recommend that you consider an alternative. The problem with the inline system is that it directly connects to the pump system, $500 unit, and filter, which is $10,000 plus unit. And then it flows into the heater. This can be an issue as it increases the wear and tear of the expensive equipment. It also has the potential, due to operator error, to damage the system or cause major problems. For example, if the valve was accidentally turned on, the pump would lose prime, heater will shut off, and most likely the pool will have to be cleared until heat and chemical levels are back to normal. What I recommend is an automated system. Over the years, good quality, lower cost units have been advisable. We use the one below at the Manitou Pool and are very satisfied. Not only does it clean the pool well, but it also reduces the man hours since you just drop it in and turn it on. It cleans the pool in a few hours and shuts off. The next day, the lifeguards pull it out and clean the filter, which takes about 5 minutes done. And so this is the thing here. And it's, what's it called? The rec supply you can reach. Cost for the unit is $800, which includes shipping. Let me know if you have any questions. And it's this unit, but you've seen those units. It's yeah, it's this information. It covers 600,000 square feet. That's about, if y'all wanted to see this right here. And I apologize, I don't have that written down. So, any questions about that unit? $800, trustee Butts?
It's the cost of getting it and the cost of not getting it. It doesn't make, you can't run a pool without vacuum. It's not really
an option.
It's not an option.
Good second, trustee.
Okay.
Well, I would support acquiring a unit, or maybe we could do a little shopping for that. I don't know if we could find a better price.
Rory said that, they got this, that $800 was pretty, yeah. Good, and I trust his,
Would that be a cooperative purchase agreement through Manitou or?
and he could, yeah, it says, let me know if you have any further questions, sincerely, Roy Cheney. Yeah, so I could call and get that price.
I do agree with you.
Okay.
All I would say is that that's a lot more than mine cost, but mine was just a residence, and yours is probably a commercial grade.
Oh, yeah.
I've had the residence one too, and I know it probably wouldn't want to.
Yeah, this is in-ground, pools,
Two of them are
commercial,
started out.
designed for pools up to 60 and then, yeah, off-surface types. So, anyway. Okay, so there's a motion and a second. Any more discussion? All those in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so I will talk to Mr. Cheney about this and get him to order that for us. So, okay, thank you. Perfect. Any more about the pool? Thank you, Grant. I'm excited to have you working for us, so we appreciate your patience.
Yeah.
As we move on, and we'll check into the coding. Thank you. Mr. Cook will do that. Okay, update on the public works position and the town clerk position. Trustee David Cook and Mayor Worthy. Okay.
I'm looking at what we have with public works person by Friday. Wow.
Okay. Okay. The town clerk, as of yesterday, we had 1,396 hits on the site and 22 applicants. So this runs through Monday, the 23rd, which I believe is Sunday, right? Monday. And then at that time, El Paso County will take those applications for us and separate them into 3 different piles for us based on qualifications. And then we'll be given those 3 different piles to look at. Okay. Yes. Okay.
I can back up to Mr. Petrona's comments about the roads, and yes, in our questioning, we are including and having to know that they know how to wet down road and wet pack. So that is part of the process of the interviews.
And Mayor, as you start restaffing the town, which your town attorney relies heavily on, our office is looking forward to working with new personnel. So in anticipation of kind of what the board did with us when we started, which was a learning curve and to get up to speed, we'll actually donate an entire day's worth of work to come down and make sure that they know what we need from them, and they can contact us. So if I assume the public works will need less of our time, but certainly your clerk. So please pass that on as you do staff it now.
Thank you. You've been most helpful, yes.
How many positions do the budget support for admin?
We have applications out for 2.
2?
Yeah. Unless the budget supports them.
Right.
It's a moving figure, but we're have 2 positions open.
So are we hiring for 2 then?
We have 2 positions open, and I guess that will depend on the applicants and how the hiring process goes.
Are they both full-time or one full-time and one part-time?
No, one is full-time and one part-time.
Well, the board still needs to decide on that, so even though, it's a suggested applicant, so until the board actually hires this particular applicant, that person hasn't been hired. So, just to, I don't know if that's real clear, but the board has the final say, so even though they have kind of a committee idea, and El Paso County is helping, that just pushes the name through.
Yeah, the only reason I bring it up is my opinion that the admin function was overmanned for quite some time. Really didn't need 3 people. So I just thank you for your information.
Okay. So we will put this on the agenda
to discuss next time, definitely.
That's just ahead of that to, looking forward to the county returning those 3
Yes.
miles to form a subcommittee of this board to look through that further and probably engage in interviewing, so that then the recommendation can be made to this board, some of the trustee purpose going through.
Okay.
Otherwise, we're going to wait for this
Right.
meeting.
So we need to get a committee together.
So, ask Cindy, who has been helping out for Rama and Calhoun, and she has offered to be part of the search committee. Now, granted, her time is limited, so I believe you had mentioned somebody, is it from Woodland Park, that has offered. So that would be ideal to have a couple of people, a couple of clerks that can ask the right questions, a couple board members, and hopefully somebody from El Paso County, if they can be part of it. A five-person interviewing committee is, it's tough to finagle. Maybe that's an ideal situation when we figure out who's available for what. So.
Do you say 5 people, Mr. Collins, is that pretty?
You know, it's up to the board. At the end of the day, you know, it's something that you to decide. So, if the board feels comfortable with one person selecting and saying, you know, this is what I think, and providing reasons why maybe they didn't select others or whatever that person feels like, but a subcommittee of 5 that goes through, I mean, you risk every now and then having too large a committee and having someone feel intimidated, but I don't think anyone that you can appoint is intimidating, so.
So I would, you've got the contact at Woodland Parks or others, the contact, you can reach out.
I can reach out to Cindy.
And you've already been working Cindy as well, so.
Cindy from Calhoun.
Right,
the both.
Yeah,
Oh, the
they're
both,
both Cindy. Yes, and I haven't spoken to Morse about that, but she has offered to help. But we need to touch base again.
Okay.
Well, I think the schedule of interviews, I know Ms. Cook and I had, so she was trying to get that lined up, so maybe you have all those folks available, but someone may not be able to make it. So you have some flexibility in the board. I would say at least 3.
Yeah.
I don't know about 5, that's overkill, but, you know, depending on how it works out. So you need 3, maybe more if they're available. I don't really know what the schedule is, but they could.
You could ask one of the clerks that's on the clerk serve to send around a clerk serve email that says, you know, what hiring questions do you use? And
El
that
Paso
may-
County is supplying those questions for us.
Yeah, so you may only need one of the clerks if scheduling doesn't work out.
Right.
But at the end of the day, the board and the other staff that's hired can have the most interaction with people.
So that's, okay.
I'd be happy to serve with the committee.
And I would be delighted to serve as well.
Awesome.
Mr. Stevens and me? Okay. Okay, Trustee Stevens, you want me to contact Cindy from,
Let's find out from the county first. And
okay,
I think if we get to a spot, if the 3 piles, if there's 1 pile that we're looking at, let's see if we can get some.
okay,
If it's 12, maybe you and I can do a first paper screen, get a look at it, and then we can go from there.
okay.
And then my hope would be to get to an interview pool of less than 6 or so, so we don't bring a whole lot of time.
Okay. Trustee Butts, are you gonna
A second.
second his name? Okay, any other discussion on that?
Yes, I'd like to make a suggestion,
Yes.
excuse me, until we actually get it position filled, have call forwarding to one of our phones. And like I said, I'm around, but I'm not around, I'm within a half hour. I'm at the bar 99% of the time of my life, but I could be here in 15, 20 minutes. So if somebody needs to come in, get some paperwork, I say, I'll meet you at 12:30, be here, let you in, and then I can keep the phone going constantly. And I did find out about it. All we have to do is contact the provider, phone service, and I think it's Comcast.
Comcast.
And,
I know.
I think Bradley would do that.
Okay,
and the number that we want to call.
okay. And then how, my question was to you, how difficult it is to get it not forwarded again, not hard at all?
Not hard, we'd have to just they'll send us some numbers and program it in and program it out.
Yeah. Perfect. So I like that idea. Do y'all like that idea? I think that will help. Are you? What
Were
is?
you volunteering?
Yes,
because I said,
But she didn't say whose phone.
She didn't
I
say who.
I said I'm close, but I'm, right within a half hour, I can be right here.
That's very gracious.
That's
Yeah.
very nice. So we'll forward it to your phone.
Right.
And then when someone comes back into town hall, like when we have someone in town hall.
And then we can unprogram it, and then that person say, program it back, and then it would come back to me. And then the phone would be answered from, what is it, 9 to 4 or 9 to 5, whatever the hours are.
Yeah.
And are we gonna do Wednesdays? Do I let it go on Wednesdays, or do I? Because it says on.
Yeah.
It's your time.
It's your time.
I mean, I don't mind answering it.
Then we're open Wednesdays. We can afford free. I don't even have to ask Trustee, but it's free for about
It's free. Okay, so Monday through Friday, town hall, phones will be answered Monday through Friday, regardless if there's a body right here. So if you need anything, and I'm speaking to those listening, if y'all need anything, just call town hall and we can run up here if we're in town and open up the doors or whatever. So thank you. So will you contact Comcast? Do you need someone else to do you need me to contact Comcast?
I will contact them to see what I need to go through that.
Okay.
And then we'll go from there. If I need something else like a account number, then I'll come back.
Okay, perfect. Good idea, Trustee Gardner. Thank you. Okay, moving along, item 10 is the noise ordinance review. And this was put on the agenda due to an email, several emails I got about noise complaints from a owner. And so y'all got copies of that. And then this is noise review has been something for years, right, Trustee Stevens, that we always revisit.
And just to maybe speed up the conversation, one of the things that I've always encouraged people to do is provide us with some concrete suggestions for how to change this to make it better. This has been a topic that's come up again and again and again. Very difficult to enforce. The topography of our area is unique. And this is not the first complaint that we've had from this resident either. And I don't think it'll be the last. And I don't think we have a noise ordinance issue. I think we have a particular situation issue that I'm not sure that we've ever been able to solve.
Mr. Cobb, as our new town attorney this year, have you had an opportunity to take a look at our noise ordinance and see how we can make this better?
Your noise ordinance has, enforcement standing in the back of the room. And when he's not on his county, it sounds like the county was involved this time, so.
I haven't forwarded on the email. I don't know who we're talking about.
Do you want to guess?
Yeah.
Well, I think I know, but
Okay. It sounds like it has to do with music, which to suggest that your code might need some updating. It refers to, this will show you how not old, phonograph.
I know. Carla, do you have?
I don't use one of those.
Okay.
I'm suggesting maybe to ask your new lifeguard if he knows what that is. You know what it is? It's similar to a record. Yeah, CDs don't work on it. So you might need some updating. I'll tell you that there's some gray areas in here. One of which though is not the enforcement, of a 50-foot, clear, let's see here.
Plainly audible at a distance
Yeah,
of 50
plainly
feet.
audible. And although it does reference the time between 10 PM and 7 AM, it doesn't limit the enforcement to 10 PM to 7 AM. So, I don't know how practical, again, the enforcement is, but it is, as it reads, 50 feet, at a plainly audible distance. So, there are tests for unlawful noise. There's 11 of them. It sounds like this situation might actually even flow over into, Part C of 10-272, which is exemptions.
We don't
There-
have that.
Yeah, it's actually the extra page that talks about things that are exempt, such as police sirens, fire sirens, flood warnings, probably flood and fire warnings, for good reason. There are other exemptions that might be coming into play here, and that's something I would suggest that you allow your enforcement officers to decide. So if it's the county, let them decide. I don't know if the county has a copy of this, or if they're trying to enforce county ordinances on Green Mountain Falls Road, which might be part of the problem.
County can't enforce any municipal codes here. If it's a disturbance, or clearly a super loud noise, then they can give a warning. Problem is, in 2012, I involved 3 other agencies in this situation. It wasn't always the Blue Moose, it was the pantry. And I had other agencies come in just because we were getting accused of not doing our job. And some of the nights these noise complaints came, I stood by the outhouses on the north end of Lake Street, where I could hear the creek with my right ear and the noise with my left. And they had about the same volume. I had it confirmed over and over again. What you can clearly hear 50 feet away is a lot of things. Okay, when these complaints were coming, the majority of them, I could hear a mumbling of the music. I couldn't hear the words. And this individual is claiming to have some American disability issues that noise creates different problems for him. And I'm certainly, open to that. I understand. I wouldn't want to be exposed to environment constantly causing me pain or whatever the issue is. But we've tried to provide a medium for this. As far as enforcement, we're the first ones to go in the backyard of the pantry or to the living room and say, we can hear it, it's too loud, you turn it down. Try and do it in a preventive manner. Generally, that's been successful over the years. I don't know what the right solution is for this situation. This individual lives within spitting distance of the parking lot where both of those businesses are. So we've taken the approach with pantry's business hours after 8, when we start getting real picky. If the Blue Moose has a new employee and they left the windows open and the doors open, and it's too loud, then we go in and we try and rise to the occasion to satisfy both sides. It's just tough. The only true way that I can figure out that you're going to have a way to regulate any noise ordinance, as long as it's defined within our code, is to have a decibel meter. We can take a clear reading and have the ordinance incorporate what the maximum decibel level is before it becomes a noise violation. Calm nights, water spill, you can hear it clear up the mountain. And it's not as noisy as it is in the parking lot. It's very strange how this town's an echo chamber in a lot of ways. I don't know how else to approach it. It's something we've dealt with year after year.
So it sounds like there's actually 2 issues. One, it sounds like, is an issue between the landowner and whether they're enforcing, whether law enforcement, be it Chief Bradley or where the county is enforcing your ordinance correctly. The other one's actually a nuisance claim, which is a civil matter, more of a civil matter between the two property owners, business and the homeowner. To the extent that that's the issue, I'd suggest the board stay as far away from that as possible. If you have the person, well, typically, if I hear the person who's gonna enforce your ordinance say, if you really want me to write tickets and enforce this, this is the way I want it to be done, this is the way I would suggest it, I would err that. So I'm happy to rewrite this, working with Marshall as to what a reasonable decibel limit is, and I do have decibel meters.
We don't, something we have to look at and go by.
I assume they're not that expensive.
No.
So, I mean, there's certainly an option. This might be outdated,
Yes.
possibly. I don't know what the solution is as far as getting the two landowners to see that this might just be a reoccurring thing, and maybe you have to close your windows and you close your windows. But as far as enforcement, if we kind of take the town out of that, then we can let them figure it out between the two of them.
When you're looking, Mr. Cobb, to update this for us, one of the things for that I really thought about for 2 years, 3 years now, is looking at this and making it a little bit more business friendly. Meaning, we are a summer community. In the winter, things get more quiet around here. And so from June or May 30th through September, Labor Day, that's the majority of when more people are gonna be here. And I've often thought about having something like summer hours and winter hours. Instead of just a flat 10 p.m. to 7. At night, in the summer, it doesn't get dark even until 9:30. And so really, we're not business friendly when we say to our business owners, especially the Blue Moose in particular, that your people have to be, at 10 o'clock, we're gonna shut things down a little bit. So what I would love to see as we're thinking about this and moving forward is talking about and discussing something like, can we, from these hours, like from May 30th through Labor Day, our hours are gonna be a little different here. Like maybe until midnight, or 11, or 11 even. Hey, just a little bit, 10:30 is better than 10. But just thinking
It's a
differently.
delicate balance between the residents and the business.
Yes,
You
yes,
have to
but,
be careful how far you go either way.
exactly, but, yes.
Well, just to reiterate, if we set a standard and give them a 14 meetings, the hours won't be relevant.
I agree with that. I was thinking the business friendly side of it is to take all the subjectivity out of it. With a standard and a measuring device, you're either in compliance or you're out of compliance. She can see it as well as before the marshal is ever involved, she can know she's out of compliance.
But what about raising this 10 and making it a little later during, these times?
You're gonna have to have public hearings on this anyway.
Well, and it's
You're
just,
amending the ordinance.
yeah.
No, the board is simply right now having some dialogue between the complaint that came in and the person who's enforcing it. Thankfully, the business owner who's standing here saying, well, let's figure this out. So, it does. It's similar to the implementation of the radar. So you actually have the cop table to say, no, see, it says you're going 80 miles an hour and showing it. And that does do something for no matter which side of the decibel meter you're on. If you're the business owner and a cop comes and says, okay, well, I was standing in that, I had, turn this on and it reads this amount. The max is this. It's clearly over, so turn it down. Vice versa is, homeowner, look, it's way below the minimum, which is here. And it essentially, it eliminates that, no, he's not doing his job, or he likes this landowner more than that landowner, which he's gonna get enough of anyway. So if this is one more way that you can update your code,
Yeah.
I would suggest at least entertaining it. You don't have to decide the levels of that. thankfully, I grew up in Greenwood Village, which is about the most picky noise ordinance place you can live in. Speaking as someone who has a disturbing peace ticket. From a vehicle. So I'll be glad to look at theirs and see what it is, and I can tell you right now, it's probably gonna be very quiet. And then there are other places that we can look to, and you can have it. I'm sure we can get one from the county to play with and show how.
You know, we can find one, and the thing about when you're running a line of two, you have to understand that it changes. Okay, we got a 20-mile-an-hour wind, in Mount Falls, it's coming from east to west, it's gonna take some of the noise. When you hire musicians, and I know this from experience, the more they drink, the later they play, the louder they get. And you're constantly scolding them, saying you're too loud, you're killing the customers in here. So there's so many variables, and if there's just a measurable standard, we can roll in and take the beat, you know, we'll figure out what 50 feet is, click it, we know what it is, we'll talk to the bar, or we'll go to the complaint and say, no, we're good. It just takes everything out of the equation, it's just right there.
Well, that's my sure that thing becomes a challenge.
Okay, so do you have anything, Trustee Ellis?
No.
Okay, I'm sorry. Do we want a motion to direct Mr. Cobb to look at this and maybe update it?
I would encourage us to jot down these notes to look at some examples, but then later on the agenda, one of the things is to update our codes and send a resolution out and not do it piecemeal, but put a committee together and do overall updates. And this would be one.
One of them. Okay.
Capture the notes and keep looking at it, but don't charge ahead just on this. Because what was pointed out is the updating that's needed here is, I would suggest updating almost.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so there's no motion for Mr. Cobb or anything. So,
No, I see where Trustees go.
okay, so do we need to direct Mr. Cobb to look at other?
No, I think he's saying that, you know, there's other resolutions that the board is gonna contemplate later in the meeting that may set a better framework to do that.
Okay.
As far as, so the board knows they can think simultaneously. To change paragraph 2, I mean, essentially, you would need an amount and get rid of planning off. So it should be a simple change. So in lieu of, in addition to, or without, you can do it however you'd like. You can easily just change this ordinance. But Trustee Stevens is saying, you know, you guys have piecemeal things for a while. You kind of put Band-Aids here and there. And there's resolutions that I've been asked to review that are later on the agenda that may create a more broad stroke review of it. Okay. So.
Perfect. Okay, thank you. Okay, so moving on. What is our agenda? Please.
Review of previous policies.
Okay, review policies. What did I do here? Okay, I don't know. So, item number 11, review of previous policies and procedures, meeting procedures, gift solicitation and acceptance policy, and the asset policy. And Trustee Stevens put together these policies for us, and I will just turn this over to you, sir.
I think that I resent those at the request of Marshall Bradley. I can't remember what we were looking at, but I sent those out. I noticed that the resolutions we passed are on the website, but these policies that we passed at our first meeting were not. But I would take advantage of the mechanism at the store to re-hand out the the resolutions I drafted previously, establishing a pile of committees for this board to try to get some work done, because obviously we have a lot ahead of us. And I apologize for the notes on here. I neglected to bring on, so these are our 10 attorney's copies. So where it says CDAC,
there's nothing on that.
Does that say time?
They have, so the first one is, as made mention, a lot of these are aligned with the previous items that we talked about in the board meeting. There's a resolution to form an advisory committee of the Board of Trustees for the town of Greenland Falls Town Hall rebuild. And that purpose, I'm jumping down to, most of these resolutions are in the exact same format, so I'm just picking on the title and then the resolution part where it gets into now therefore being resolved. Then the second item there really talks about the purpose of the committee. The committee of this Town Hall Rebuild Advisory Committee would be to research, consider, update, and ultimately recommend actions for the Board of Trustees to consider which are in the best interest of the municipality of Greenland Falls regarding celebrations and ceremonies recognizing the new Town Hall, coordination of donations, including drafting lists of needs and recommending the Board of Trustees acceptance or denial of possible donations. C, identification and planning of unmet needs not currently within the scope of the project. And then the tenure of this would be until the new Town Hall project is completed as determined by the Board of Trustees. So that's kind of the essence of that one. And then the next one was the advisory committee, the town on parks, recreation, and pool. Really thinking about part of this is, well, I'll just jump to the purposes again. Coordination of donations, including drafting lists of needs and recommending the Board of Trustees acceptance or denial of possible donation. Identification and planning of unmet needs, coordination of grants, policy updates such as fees, hours, and regulations. That's kind of trying to do a short one, so then this is the one that I was just referring to earlier. Advisory Committee of Town, the Board of Trustees of the Town of Greenland Falls for Municipal Government Policy Review. This purpose of this advisory committee is to research and ultimately recommend actions for the Board of Trustees to consider to develop a timeline for this committee's work, targeting implementation by the Board of Trustees by December this year, research current policies and ordinances, town personnel policies, all board approved policies, procedures, so it's governing the operations, finance, and planning, and those that state opinions such as resolutions, support, and against issues, and departmental policies that involve procedures, departmental procedural guidelines, and then identify alternative options, locate model codes, best practices, examples of other municipalities and organizations, evaluate the options, and then present the board options for additional direction, and draft updates as needed, implement, and provide recommendations for trustees. And the next one is the Trails Committee resolution. I just pulled that up, and that was what was adopted. And I don't know, I believe it's conceivable that one of our initial resolutions abolished that, so I threw that in there to reapprove that. So we might have the town attorney's input on that, whether we re-adopt that or whether it's still standing. And then the next one is a advisory committee for budget and finance, looking at advising us on revenue and expenses of Greenland Falls, project budgeting, capital improvements, planning and financing, and the appointment of trustee votes.
Is that what it says?
Okay. To see if you're paying attention.
I'm paying attention, I don't have that. I only have one of those.
I don't have one of those too.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't have page 2.
Okay.
What do you need page 2?
We don't have page 2 of the budget finance one, but I think it just gets into the signatures maybe.
I've got it. It's worth on its way. I don't think it's.
Is there anything of substance on there? It's probably the exact same thing. As
4, so no, it starts with 4, the same 4 that's on, 4 is at the top of the page, so you could refer to page 2, paragraph 4, any prior.
beauty of word processing. And then finally, the structure of municipal government. This, we developed a timeline for this committee's work, and then research current organizational structure, identify alternative options, evaluate the options, identify areas of policy updates needed to implement, and provide a recommendation to the board, and then following acceptance of recommendation, draft implementation timeline. What that jargon is getting at is the discussion of town manager versus trustee liaison versus, some other structure there. Looking at that. So the intent and why I drafted these was looking at all that we have ahead of us as a board. It seems wise for us to parcel this out into some advisory committees to spend some, so we can concentrate the time on these issues. Obviously, it was a challenge to find committee members, but we find a few. And absent a few, we can at least get a board member or two to serve on these committees and get some likelihood so that there's some clear direction by this board that yes, we want some advice on these matters. And then this board will be expecting some answers back from these advisory committees. So we're not trying to do everything all at once.
Thank you, Trustee Stevens. This is awesome and excellent work on getting this put together. Mr. Cobb, do you have comments about this?
I do. I did have the opportunity to review these, which is mostly a comical joke. So. There's really no glaring problems with these ordinances or these resolutions. The key with committees is to have really well defined goals. It sounds like most of these have pretty well defined goals. There's one that might be a little open-ended, that you might want to bring in a little bit, which is a structure of the municipal government. And you'll want to be careful not to change. I mean, drastic changes are when towns decide to go from statutory to rural, or so you might want more direction on that one as to boards getting the sense that it might want to do this, so go do that, rather than sending them in the complete opposite way. There's all sorts of structures. I mean, I don't know if that means you're looking at maybe doing a town manager thing, maybe combining some or branching out, going to all sorts of directions. So that one you might need more directions on. The other issue I see is that a lot of these require, or at least contemplate, minutes and bylaws, and if the goal is for this board to have these committees provide quick answers or quick suggestions that the board can say, yeah, we like that idea, let's delve into that further, then these committees probably don't want to spend their time providing you 7 more minutes to review each meeting. So that might be something you might not want. But again, then the flip side of that is saying, oh, committee, what have you been doing? So we asked you to do this, go do it. The other, let's see here, the other issues, that's the informal approach. The other issues here are actually getting people to serve on these committees, which you contemplated. I will add one caveat on having board members serve on it. Please don't do more than 3, because your clerk will not enjoy posting 7 meetings in addition to any special meetings you have.
Yeah.
And finally, really, the key, I mean, everyone has heartburn over these, is to take a second, relax. These are advisory committees. You're not giving any real authority to go other than to go bring us back information, because the ultimate authority is still going to rest with the board. They're bringing you suggestions and reports and examples, and similar to what you asked me to do. Is here you go, this is what you asked, did I get it right? Yeah, then you can accept it, do it. No, go try again. Either one of those are fine, but you haven't, thankfully, given them any real authority to act on behalf of the town, which I appreciate. I think Sarah will too. And you haven't really given them any right to go do anything that wouldn't be subject to your approval. So the town hall rebuild one, since Rob's sitting right here. I'm gonna add the special caveat that says, you know, be real careful not to do anything and make it real clear, which I think is there, but I wanna highlight even further, is that, you know, this is identification and planning of unmet needs not currently within the scope of the project. So if you put a committee together and they don't really understand what this means, you may not say, oh, you know what, I think we should do this. Hold on, guys, stop building, let's take a look at this. That might make your really hard-looking architect and contractors out there not very happy with you. And it might mess with your budget, which I don't think Trustee Butts would appreciate.
In essence, though, you had a building, the previous board had a committee that made those decisions and got us to this point in time. Whether me or you agree with all those decisions is kind of mute. We've got a process in motion. So if we came up with recommendations at this point, it would be purely to look at the monies that are left in contingency at the end of the project. We have kind of set the project up so you have easily, there's certain things you can easily do after the fact, like paving the driveway. It does not affect anything else on the building project now. It can be done now, 10 years from now, and there's a number of other things that would fit onto this list that I'd recommend that you look at it that way. Things that don't detrimentally affect the process that's in place or any of the other system, corresponding or adjacent systems, whatever it is.
And I like the idea that number one is to do the celebrations and ceremonies, so we don't miss the vote on that.
Yeah,
I think that's
me
important.
too.
So I think I don't think, I'm not trying to say that I think you're saying go vote project. I'm trying to make that abundantly clear that that's definitely for anyone listening out there, that's not the intent. Intent's more future looking at things that might not have been covered. Opening ceremonies, groundbreaking, pieces of art here or there, things like that that the architecture frankly has concerned himself with much more important things that committees really will be involved. And frankly, I've said it from the beginning, this is going to be the precipice of the UPass for many years to come. So I think a committee that recognizes that and that fills in the holes, as long as it understands that you're there to fill in the holes, not redo the whole project. So
And just to add to that's kind of the mindset that I had drafting this, is that this is additive. This is not, and I wasn't even thinking of contingency and getting involved in the project and the current contracting. There's a slim chance something that comes up and is identified by this group may get picked up by that.
Or
That's
maybe
not
a wish
even-
list for future budgets too.
That's right.
Because there's a number of things that I think over the last year we looked at, so that may be easier to do in your operation budget over time.
And the other piece of that is the coordination of donations. Lots of people want to be generous, but we also don't want to get things that are not characteristic or not appropriate or not of the quality that we wish. So we want to be careful that we are screening and validating good donations that are additive to the project, rather than things that we're just graciously accepting.
yes, they might not have a place in the town hall, they have a place somewhere else, and they can be beneficial. Going on to Parks and Rec, and pool committee, I mean, that's typical municipalities that have pools and parks and other fun things to do that I'm looking forward to using soon. The government policy review, I'll actually circle back to it, if I can get things in order here. Let's see, the budget and finance. I would suggest that since he's probably more well-versed than any of us sitting here, you add Trustee Butts to that. And if that kicks one of the other trustees off, I don't think that they'll complain. I know he's worked extremely hard, and to give you a sense of it, for most attorneys, it counts 20, we take our shoes off. But he has actually explained to me very, very very basically where we are and any questions I've had, which have been numerous, he's had answers for, which is pretty impressive. So he's doing a good job, not as the treasurer, as the trustee in charge of the budget currently. If you could get him some help on it, I'm sure he would like it. Let's see, and to go one step further, it is typical that municipalities have citizen budget committees that actually review them. So this isn't, you're not reinventing the wheel. They have these committees that actually go through and say, here's what we think, and then they present it to the board, and the board says, okay, we agree or we don't like it. Let's see here. And they actually usually work with staff, which is good because you're gonna have new staff coming in to formulate a proposed budget and then present it to you guys. So again, final authority rests with you. We enjoy that. And then the open-endedness of the structure of the government. It sounds like you might believe this is just where you're heading as a board, say, we're looking at these issues. But then again, if you leave it open-ended, tell them not to go too far and bring them broad stroked ideas, and then you can narrow their ideas too. So open-endedness and openness is not necessarily a bad thing. I just want you to be aware of it. The Trails Committee, I mean, it is what it is. If you're uncomfortable and you want to be abundantly clear, which attorneys never have a problem being, you can certainly be adopted. I don't think it's causing a problem. Circling back to the municipal government policy review, I would assume that's probably where most of my time would be spent. If I'm anticipating what Trustee Stevens is saying correctly. Seems like the town code was written a while ago, as some of the younger members of the audience may be able to attest to. It could use some updating. It is not a easy process. There really is no even section of the code that you can take and just plug in. And those of you who live here, I'll sound like a broken record, but your town's unique, and that's why you live here. And so to go get even one of our similar municipalities codes and bring it here, it really wouldn't help you to just blanketly do it. So there are, I mean, just even the noise ordinance, contemplating that things come off the canyon like that, it really, I mean, you might be able to look at some of the other you pass and get an idea, but it's gonna take some very direct work between town staff, or in this case, the committee. I'm happy to do that, to go through. We've rewritten zoning codes for our municipalities that were very outdated. We've rewritten zoning land use, enforcement. I have actually been speaking with the chief and getting him the most recent model code for him to start going through and say, this is the things that he'd like to change that would work with your municipality and present that to you guys. But again, that's going to mostly be on him to go through and say, well, I don't want to go out and do that. So, but I'm happy to see this. I think that goes again to the piecemealing Band-Aid approach that we've sort of been taking here. Another example is the dual reading system that you have that might be overkill for a size of town that you have. It's good because it gives you options to hear everybody's thoughts, but it's bad because it kind of requires you to wait a little bit to get through things that might otherwise move quicker. But I'm happy to work with the committee. I was happy when you guys hired us to work with the board to do it. So let us know if you want us to work with the committee. If you want the committee, if you want us to work with the board, we'll work with the board, or both.
We have to have people on the committee.
Yes,
Yes.
that goes back to the issue that you can create all these committees, but staffing them with someone less than 3 of you, and then like 2.5, that would be 2 trustees on it, and citizens might be hard, especially now that you have some summer residents who might think, oh, I'll be on this committee while I'm here.
Right,
So,
okay. Board, do you have any comments or anything, trustee Butts?
I did. I think 7 is a lot, and if we get all 7 going simultaneously, I think that's a great ideal thing. But looking at prioritizing these and seeing what, and actually the way to prioritize them might be to look for committee members and the citizens that step up to be part of one of these committees may show us where the community wants to start with. The one that I have a little angst about is the policy one. And while I know the policy needs to get done, the timeline you've got on there, I believe, is December 2014, which Mr. Krob and I have talked about attorney fees and kind of where we stand with the money. And this is a big undertaking, as he just mentioned. And I worry that his time, while we need it, I don't know if that's where we need it right now. Possibly it's something that we can, as without him, get ideas on where we'd like to move things and bring a rough draft to him. So that's the only money part that I see.
So if I might interject, that's exactly what the mindset was here. And then the December timeframe is for the development of a timeline.
Okay.
So this committee will just figure out, knowing that this is a huge endeavor and multiple year, I think that this is not something that's going to happen that quickly. And then as you add similar thinking, yeah, let's get this committee oriented, let's have them pull together, let's look at some stuff, let's, redline our existing, let's look at some other examples. And then once there's a clear direction, hey, this is perfect, let's work with this. And you have this committee do a lot of legwork to get understanding, and then when they have a final draft, if you will, then engage the attorney. So that we're not burning the attorney's time to help us figure out, well, what does the noise ordinance mean? That kind of thing. So, because there's a tremendous amount of orientation that to understand what's out there.
Trustee Butts, what you said about I like the idea of putting this out, seeing what our citizens want. If they're passionate about a certain thing, but my question would be, how many people constitutes a committee?
2?
2?
2 plus? I don't know.
I wonder if we have 17 people wanting to work in the new town hall and no one working. Do we need to clarify that a little bit?
Absolutely not.
No.
I think if 17 people want to work on the new town hall, then we should get some really good ideas.
Rob?
Yeah, we already got our chairman.
One other idea on prioritization is to have each one of us as trustees chair one of these and help accrue, because that's probably the best way.
I would suggest, rather than chair, be an ex officio member. So that the citizens drive the committee and not the trustees. Otherwise, you end up doing more work than you really should. If you just sit in and give them advice, that's less time consuming for you than if you try to chair a committee. That's, tell your chairman is a lot of work.
But to be like the contact or whatever, Mr. Rapp, the person. And so.
Committee liaison.
The committee liaison. So with that, which one, I want to start trustee Stevens, since you made the names and created them, which one would you want? We know trustee Butts where he's going to be.
John Hall.
No, trustee Butts. Finance, trustee Butts. What about you, trustees? You want that one? Oh my gosh.
I would suggest just one trustee per committee, not more than one.
No, we're joking. We were joking. We laugh a lot.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I think Unfortunately, my inclination and interest is in the government policy review.
Good, yay.
That's painful as that
Oh,
is.
darn,
that's
that's the
good.
one everybody gets to know.
That's awesome, Stevens. Okay, trustee Cook,
Pretty obvious.
The pool?
Recreation pool.
okay. Trustee Gardner,
Trails.
Trails, awesome. Trustee Quinn,
What's left?
Budget, finance.
No, that's not left.
Structure,
structure,
town hall.
Oh,
Structure.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, yeah.
structuring,
I'm thinking town hall.
town hall. Okay, trustee Ellis, what is that? That means you-
That would be the structure of municipal government.
Okay, so you are the,
Finance.
no, town hall, town hall rebuild, Quinn? Okay.
Yeah, and I would say that, I mean, that one is not going to last through the year, I would think, so I would be available to help out at that time.
And actually, I think it is more for future. I think the short term, it's less.
Those decisions are made
Right, right.
September, this is after September.
Okay, yeah, no, I like it.
Okay, so just to reiterate, we have trustee Ellis, who is representing, right? The liaison, committee liaison to a resolution establishing an advisory committee for the structure of government. Trustee Cook is for Parks and Recreation. Trustee Quinn for the Town Hall rebuild. Trustee Butts, Budget and Finance. Trustee Gardner for the Trails. And Trustee Stevens for Policy Review.
Good.
Perfect. Okay, good. And I am just on standby in case you guys need me. How's that? I will just be stretched wherever y'all need me. Okay, so do we need a motion to,
Well, I mean, you guys can do it, and any number, I mean, we can go back, you can go back and add the trustee
Just put it in this.
in there, so you have it. The open-endedness, you know, you can, again, think about how you wanna do it, but as I said, as written, they're fine, to adopt. So if you wanna create the committee now and then fill it later, that's fine. If you wanna fill a theoretical committee and then create it later, that's fine too. However you'd like to do it.
I would encourage us to pass it and have each of these committees look at these scopes. So at the next meeting, we're moving forward and trying to identify a member or two or three, or put the call out there for people to join these, but then also review these and have the board make some suggestions, as the town attorney suggested on the structure to do it on that, so that we have some language that gives that committee clear direction. Because, yeah, we don't want to send the committee off in the wrong direction.
so have each trustee search for committee members and then report back at our next meeting. So when you get your committee members, you look over this then and redefine it.
Yeah, look over that, see what the ideas, and another thing you might wanna see is when people are available to meet. So that, you know, if you get people who can't meet on the same day, you say, okay, well, maybe this day is a date that you wanna meet.
Okay, so let's add this, yeah.
I was gonna ask trustee Stevens if he could send these out. So.
And do you guys want to put the word out, like I can put this out, that we're recruiting for these people? Please contact trustee Stevens if you're interested in this. I'll help get the word out there through social media. Okay? So let's put this on the agenda for discussion next time, definitely. Okay, perfect. Trustee Stevens, thank you again for all of this. Moving us ahead, I feel like we're making progress. Okay, reports of the board. The only thing I have to report is the swings, green box, the swings are getting installed. There is a media event that you guys are all invited to board. If you are in town, it is 10:30 on the 23rd for the media event for Greenbox. And the person, we're gonna be hearing about all of what the swings are and all of that. So 10:30 on the 23rd, just down there at the swing set.
And unless you're gonna have someone post it, I'm willing to. So.
Even at a public event,
Any gathering,
Because it can be viewed as a meeting.
any gathering.
so
The three of you should not be sitting down that con.
No.
right,
Yeah.
well, that's one thing, but if we show up at a music swing, shouldn't that be seen?
It's a gathering of any three.
So any random chance
Business
meeting.
is not discussed.
Yeah, as long as business.
Small
Yeah.
No,
As long-
it's not, okay, well, if business is discussed or not, there's really, perception is not a good idea. It's the basic perception that anytime three of you are meeting, which is exactly why I said, don't put three of you on a committee because.
Right.
then you
Right,
can't
we
do
understand
it.
that.
So we should.
It's the same thing as the swearing in. There was no business discussed that day. You just swore in your marshal. But there shouldn't have been more than three, or more than two officials, two trustees at that. That's why there were two of you were there.
Well, this is good clarification for myself. So, for things like Bronc Day and the car show, we should post that as an open,
Yeah.
just
so
in case.
Typically how you do it, and you know, another municipality, they can do it, but typically what we do is, for instance, the CML conference. So if three of you are gonna go to that, you actually have to have it posted. And what they do is usually when you post a meeting, you say, well, what's gonna be discussed? Usually the ads on there is, so people don't show up because that becomes a public meeting. So what you do is you say, you know, these trustees are gonna attend the CML conference on this date at these times, no town business is gonna be discussed. Then it says, if I'm a citizen and I'm reading that, it's posted, well, no town meeting, no business is gonna be discussed, which means if for some reason you discussed it, it becomes void, which says, at this meeting, that you don't really want it to be public, but because you're public officials, it has to be public. The people that wanna be there are only gonna go if you're gonna be talking about things, so that's why you add the caveat that says, no public visit, but you still post it.
Okay.
And, I mean,
We're gonna learn
drive
how
up
to
with
do
the
that.
park, look on, I mean, Evans, there's tons of people, that I would, typically, you're gonna wanna post it, because what happens is inevitably one person comes by and says, no, you guys discussed that at that meeting, where three of you were, you know, you were happy. Typically, it's, you were sitting in a coffee shop, the three of you discussing it, and then you went to the meeting. Well, where was the decision made? Was it made at the meeting, public meeting, where you heard all the input, or was it made at the coffee shop?
Right.
And so, as your clerk is saying here, no, not loudly.
Okay.
But you wanna do it, so that's fine, and it's not a big deal
Who all
to
will
post it,
be,
but you can do it.
who all will be available that day? I'm planning on being there.
Hopefully.
Yes,
Hopefully.
yeah. You're working. Will you be there?
I can be there.
Yeah.
It's Monday, right?
Yeah, it's
Yeah, I
Monday,
can be there on Monday.
So the simple solution is just to have your clerk post the meeting, and then add the caveat that no business will be discussed, and you don't have people there expecting to put input into any agenda item.
Okay. So can we make a note to get that? Sure.
The converse of that is when you post the special meeting, you say, we're gonna have a special meeting at this date and time, here's what we're gonna discuss.
Right.
And you've given everyone notice that wants to talk about that, or hear about that, or participate in that, to come and talk about that. But that way you have it real clear, here's what we're gonna discuss, here's where we're meeting, and there's never a, I don't know, those three are talking over here, and those three are over there, so.
So luckily we have an example of both,
Yes.
like the liquor license and the press conference.
Yeah, you get both. But no special elections.
Not yet.
They still get
Okay, that's all, so that's all I have. Trustee Gardner, do you have a report?
No, not at this time.
Trustee Stevens?
I don't, but Rob Seaver has our town hall update.
Oh.
You just have to wait a month.
Thank you, Mr. Seaver, for staying up.
Problem.
Get in so we can see you on camera.
He was over there last
Gotta
week.
go
He was
over
there
there.
standing next to me.
Well,
I was gonna change it up.
With your approval.
I'm stepping in for Ken Murphy tonight, and then he had a conflict with the meeting. So I hope I follow his lead. Over the last couple of weeks, things have progressed nicely. We are on schedule still. Weather's been good. We have no weather delays. As you can see, it's perfect. Just a quick recap. We've had 2 concrete pours, footers, and stem walls. Stem walls are the frost walls that come out, and then the retaining walls in the back of the building, both the building as well as the retaining walls. There's a miscellaneous pour coming up here in the next few days for the front retaining wall. We have a few issues there with subsurface water, but fairly easily resolved. I think it was just because of the time we had a decent amount of rain, and we found that water does kind of go downhill into our footer. So structural engineer came out there, we kind of packed it a little bit more, we overdug it and packed it a little bit to get some of that moisture out of there. It's very on all of these things that we have good drainage behind these walls. That just kind of put a good example in front of us. We don't want water behind that wall pushing things around. So it kind of brought up that category of, do we have perimeter drains in here? That's what they're doing right now. Basically, after the pours, they strip forms. Under slab utility work will be occurring here over the next couple of weeks. That would be plumbing and electricity. Some of the things I mentioned when I was up here before, floor boxes for this, podium, that kind of stuff is the under slab electrical side of this thing. The other thing that will be going on in the next few weeks is backfill on that retaining wall. So excavator will be back out. And there will be the beginning of some utility work out there, although we have been a little bit snagged from a utility standpoint here over the last few weeks. I know that CenturyLink has now talked to just about all of us about telephone service. I think as of yesterday morning, Mr. Gaddy is relatively satisfied with what we're doing. Did make a quick change to the utility pole based on his discussion last week with you, Laurie. This isn't so much as coordination. With CSU Power, we've been coordinated for a year. So I have no issue with CSU at this point. They're like, you can move the pole wherever you want to move the pole. The pole being the pole, the only pole that's on the property we're moving. The chief issue there has just been in coordinating with the other people that are on that pole, essentially. After all, we do have something just around 100 pair of copper phone lines. That's the phone service for the entire town. So when we ask CenturyLink to scooch that puppy over, it's a little bit more than just moving on. I mean, I'm not trying to belittle the linesman job, but that's a big constant cable. So I digress, but at this point, beyond the site activities there, we've had no reports of any substantial safety or vandalism issues. We've been pretty happy with that. Everyone's stayed pretty clear of our site, which is good. We've had no other issues other than that subsurface water question. At this point, it's still, our contract is still pretty much the way it was. We have the one change order that the board signed here some time back. So we remain at $537,000 on the project. There will be, or we have received no cost change letters or change order documentation at this point in time. There will be some miscellaneous things coming up. One of them, some of the retrofit work on the retaining wall, which is the excavator. There's a few things involved getting the engineer back out to observe some things. We have some field office reports. So these are relatively minor costs. Tyler and I have kind of worked through the one issue because we are on a pretty, it doesn't look that way to look at the site. It just seems like it's a pile of dirt, but when you get up there is significant activity going on, and we are maintaining that schedule. So there are some quick things that happen. Just as an example, on that retaining wall, as it works. You've got an excavator out there for 5 weeks moving dirt around, and 2 days before they're scheduled to leave, we find this problem. Now, the issue is, and we talked about this at the previous meeting, that excavator is renting that equipment. That equipment is quite expensive to rent hourly or daily. So the reason the decisions kind of move quickly, in that sense, is like, okay, we gotta do this, that, and the other thing, because the engineer's like, well, just wait and let it dry out. No, let's do something to make sure it's done right. Well, we've got big equipment out here, we can dig a hole. Otherwise, we've got remobilization of equipment and costs us, the town, money, or we're hand digging this thing out, which that costs us money. So some of these decisions are not trying to be absent of the board, but are relying on the professional team that you have out there to make these decisions. The decisions are made on your behalf based on time and money, saving time and money. So not all things are going to work that way. There's some things that will come up like the CSU contract. We have a little bit of time to look at it. A side note on this contract, I'm going to change the address to your address and your phone number rather than my address. CSU's done this twice, you know, where it's like I'm getting the mail. It says Town of Green Mountain Falls. It comes to my box. So housekeeping.
On that, I noticed that we've got a check and we intend to send the check.
We need to get a check for $7,594.03. And I'll submit that with this to CSU.
Then we're all set.
Okay.
I thought that we were gonna be invoiced on the final amount.
No, the way this works is CSU wants money up front. This is an estimate, and then the two of us have discussed this a little bit. They have priced the worst case scenario, and hopefully we get money back at the end of the day.
Probably twice what we wrote the check for.
The thing that frustrates me, the thing that frustrates me a little bit about this is we do budgets. The very same people we do the budgets with give us this contract. I'm like, okay, you gave me the first number. Why is this high? We went over this before the plan didn't change. There is inflation and time elapsed here and things like that. But Cindy and I at CSU, the biggest piece of this is we're talking about copper. Copper, whether it's phone lines or power. So you can imagine we've got a pole, the one we're moving, and another pole. Moving this around, she's priced it based on totally new lines. And our point was, well, one of those is going to be shorter. So you can just cut the wire and put that on the pole. And again, I'm not trying to belittle Springs Utilities or the linesman's job. So we know we're going to replace one segment. We aren't replacing both. So I hope we get money back. But that's kind of the way this works. CenturyLink, for their part, has brought up a number of issues over the last few weeks. They thought we were encroaching in their fiber vault out there. We were near their fiber optic line. They thought Southern Road was going to do that. So part of the clarification with the utility companies is just getting that information out there, making sure that they understand what our intent is. There will be similar communication from CenturyLink as this for their linesmen to get up and move their line. Obviously, the whole reason why we just moved this pole the other way at the last minute is to make that a cheaper number. So there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff going on here, mostly with utilities. Chris, or I should say Mr. Quinn, I do need to elicit your assistance in that you are a CSU employee on the water side. Our water review now is into its fourth, almost fifth week. I know the two of us have talked a little bit with the reviewer. And I know our reviewer was sick for 4 days or something last week, but that is holding up our building permit, and it's starting to get noticed by the Pikes Peak Regional Building Department. So right now we have 2 teams of people here, one working with CSU to get that water thing out. Approved. I'm not saying that that's your department, because it's not, you're in the contracts, but we're working through the CSU process on that. Most of the issues, as you're well aware, are nomenclature issues, not anything to do with the 3/4 inch water line, which is the focus of our project. I'm just going to say one thing, I'm frustrated with this. And it has nothing to do with you. I'm just not saying just because you work for CSU, I'm just looking at you. We're trying to work the best we can within that system, whether it's CSU or the building department, because I have to work with them again. So it's not like we can go down there and threaten people by any means. We can be politely kind of pushy, which is kind of where we're at. Part of the issue of CSU water right now has to do with buried water lines out there that we don't know where they're at. You and I have discussed this a little bit, they're wanting easements on that. Matt, I've talked to you a little bit about this. What we think the agreement is what we had discussed, is that we need to reference an easement, that's a general easement that floats. And by the time we get final, we need a recording, we need it to be recorded. The language needs to be recorded in the assessor's office. So this is a kind of a, I'll need your assistance, Mr. Crowe.
Yeah, I pulled out the plat and looked at it, and there's something on there.
It references,
Does that,
I looked at it too, it doesn't reference this utility line, it references access to the easement for access to the adjacent landowner, and we have a utility easement for the benefit of the adjacent landowner, but we don't have an easement specifically between the town and Brockhurst Ranch, which is the end user of that water line. And that's what CSU is looking for, specific languages to the end users, and I think there's 4 or 5 of them.
But I will say that that is not required for a permit.
It isn't, but right now, as of this morning, our third rejection has that on there still.
Okay, well, they
So,
will.
I mean, I'll call you back to it, this is what we're saying, but I'll call you back on it, because I thought we were doing kind of what we had discussed with Mr.
I thought we were this close.
Troche.
Yeah.
When we talked to our review, when you and I talked to our reviewer 2 weeks ago, I thought it was imminent.
Well, I did.
As of this morning, we have our third disapproval.
Right.
So, I've instructed my engineering team, we've got two engineers working on this, both the plumbing engineer and civil, to make those changes as quickly as we can.
Is that the only rejection? Is that the only comment?
No, one of them is new. We need to show Springs Utilities our septic layout. I personally believe that's beyond CSU's balance. Our septic system's been reviewed and approved by El Paso County.
Right.
We can send them those permits, which we do have, and all that information. But to show detail of our septic system to Springs Utilities,
I think it's a conflict thing, but yeah.
I mean, and I'm being pretty blunt right now, because I'm not trying to offend Mr. Our reviewer, I should say. But I think there's a few comments when we're 4 weeks into this and you get that, and I can, this came out of the field, why did we do this 4 weeks?
So it's CSU review or building?
It's a CSU review. Our project is clear of all departments, the regional building in El Paso County. So we're just waiting on water and wastewater. I'm not saying, I mean, I've instructed my team to do everything they can do it quickly. But then once it gets back in, we're gonna need to get it turned around. So the last thing I wanna do is have a work stoppage to this water line. But we don't have one right now, because the other group that's working is the contractor.
I didn't know what it was, I hadn't heard anything. Since the last time I called you and said, why haven't you submitted yet?
Well, see, you're catching me when you're waiting for us to submit, now I'm catching you when we're waiting for us to respond. But, anyway, that's kind of a peripheral issue that's going on. We've got a good team on this, but it's just a little frustrating, we want to get this thing on.
I will provide guidance.
So,
Thank you, Trustee Quinn, for your assistance there.
I appreciate it as well, because I mean, it's, quickly, other than that, what the architect does at this point in time in the project is I'm reviewing the submittals from the contractor. At this point in time, most of the major submittals like HVAC, plumbing, and electrical have been approved. All that equipment is under order, especially electrical. We have some lead items on our here. I have reviewed the trusses and the framing for this building. I did disapprove that set, we're waiting for a resubmit, and that's just based on me questioning some of the truss design. The other submittals that I have in place that are not a priority right now are carpet, cabinetry, and blankets. Some of the things I've included, glazing, our front entrances and windows, all that stuff is under order at this point in time.
So is that round going to be, it's not going to be discussed among the board about the carpets or what they look like, or what, it's not?
That's part of what Tyler and I had discussed, kind of from possibly the committee would do that. The building finish materials have already been approved by the previous committee. It's the interior finishes that really we were, the carpet, plastic laminate for countertops, that kind of thing, the base, paint selection. I have gone through real quick, and it's not.
Paint colors, like the colors of the inside of the building, so that's all a committee. Who's
No,
choosing?
there's no committee.
It's gonna,
That was
it's
part of
gonna
the bid.
come, that's part
That
of
was
the
part
bid.
of the bid.
I mean, the colors that we're
Yeah.
gonna use in
All
the.
that's specified.
Yeah.
So it's just for final approval. So if anyone would like to join me and have some input, get in touch with me. Otherwise.
Now, I will say, 'cause the trick here,
What color's gonna be inside?
the trick here is we don't have an interior designer in the project. Often you do, those people pre-select the colors and you're just getting chips back that match what they select, and you're like, this is what we want, it's what my go, looks good. In this case, we don't have an interior designer, so that means some of these interior finishes fall back, the submittal comes to me like, what color do you want? I'm like, I've given them some general direction, I said, no, not pink.
No,
I'm looking at generally neutral carpet schemes here, and it's not like we have, the carpets, I have 7 looks of carpets. These are reduced, because we get hundreds. So I said, let's get it into a workable scheme, so we aren't, because especially if you've got a committee on this, we could take hours, because people are subjective about color, texture, things like that, so. What I have done at this point is kind of pre-selected some things, both laminates and carpets. I think that paint chip, paint's pretty easy. I pre-selected that since I wanted to kind of work this out as to how much further that needs to go.
What I'd probably recommend is, you get a set of samples, we'll take them to Couture and whoever else. And
Yeah, I think that's, and it'd be just like, you're set up for that already, and this is exactly, I've got your results now from my machines with me, and those have thousands. Granted, I've gone through that and said, none of these,
Not mine, but.
none of these, and gotten us back to I've kind of narrowed it down. And then certainly it's a decision between, between you and me on that. The carpet, actually, I think I picked a pretty good carpet. We'll have to talk about that. I picked kind of the same. I didn't bring one here, but it's the same color scheme, but there's two different textures to it, so we can kind of break it up a little bit. The lobby's one thing, and walk into this room, and it's another. We're trying to go for simplicity here, so most of your cabinets are kind of a wood grain front, is what I picked, and kind of a slaty kind of top. I generally look at stuff that has multiple colors in it, so you can mix and match just about any paint or drapery or anything with it. But anyway, that's something that we'll need to kind of discuss here over the next few weeks to a month. Beyond that,
Sounds to me like we do have an interior designer.
I know.
it'll all be black and gray.
Yeah.
Yeah, that pretty much is more than I need to say. What else? What other questions can I answer on here?
I have a question. Is there a plan to put in a security light, like a night light, for the site?
There's a site lighting plan. There are 3 light poles on it.
Are you thinking temporary or permanent?
Temporary.
Oh,
During construction.
that has been discussed.
Like now, you know.
That's been discussed because there's a floodlight and a pole that the church owns that's right kind of halfway down the parking lot here. We discussed that with Pastor McKnight. The contractor and I discussed that with them. They said, sure, you can use our pole, but we need you to rewire this and put the switch in and that. And the contractor decided from a liability standpoint that we were going to stay clean. We weren't going to make that agreement. That involves liability once we bring our forces off of our property onto somebody else's property. So generally not that I'm speaking for the lawyer or anything, but I like to keep this clean. Our property line's kind of where we're at. We do our work over here.
Well, and that's not to say that the pastor's trying to do something.
No. This is kind of a standard hacking.
But we've contracted with Green and said, go do this. And in doing that, we've got all these insurance installations he's required to get that covers the site, anything that's foreseeable on his side. If he's saying, you know, I don't wanna step out and do that. I would suggest the town say, you know, that's fine, because.
And that's what they said first. There's a second part to that. We're taking a wait and see attitude, both in terms of that and fence. We could get chain link fence around this entire site. We could light it. Sursa has graciously said, if you want a fence, we'll pay for it, outside of what they've already given us. We thought that was a good deal, but on the other hand, the fence does restrict our activities in construction too. So the general thought here is unless we're gonna, if we don't have a problem, we're not gonna try to solve it. So we are taking a wait and see. That has been a discussion, especially as it relates to power.
Yes,
Power,
the Thursday was telling you,
in fact.
put the fence up, then put the fence up. They're saying, hey, we'll put one up if you want it.
So I'm gonna let the contractor drive that boat a little bit if they think there's a problem. I mean, it's not your liability because you don't own it right now, it's not mine. So if the contractor feels there's a problem, they're gonna bring it up to us.
Yeah,
Or
and I don't think they'll have a problem, at least get with Tyler, you and Tyler saying, all right, there's a problem out there.
If someone
This is
stole
what we
this
think. And then the board or building owners rep can.
Now, hopefully, based on previous projects, what happens, if you're gonna get vandalism or theft, you'll have something that sets that precedent. You aren't gonna have someone come right in and steal our main switchgear out of the building, which I might add has happened on one of my jobs. $70,000 of the switchgear was stolen. That results in an insurance claim and a delay of the project about a month, because that stuff's the lead item. So we are gonna look at activity footprints and what's going on out there and make that determination. Hopefully, I mean, we're not gonna put switchgear on day one. We certainly know what our expensive things are. And we'll take steps to.
Well, you have a marshal that you can coordinate.
And actually, I should thank Tim for that. Tim has been very vigilant on this.
If it was my suggestion, once you start wiring that building, that's the time that you go rent an electric iron-free light or something like that.
Yep.
And you put it so that it floods at least the front of that building, so if anybody's moving around,
The
they
trick
can
is
see.
it's high up and it's behind a dirt pile. So if you're up there, like you can't, right now, if you're on the street or it's parking lot, you can't see very much. You can see kind of the top of that frame up or that formwork. But you can do an awful lot up there and not be seen.
Well, as far as commercial, you know, it seems the number one thing that you get is the cover. Once they start pulling wires and once they start stocking tools on site.
You have that, and then if there's storage containers of that trailer, those are the things that get hit for equipment, you know, saws, all that kind of stuff. They don't have very much in that trailer right now, I'll tell you that right now, for that reason. Anyway, we're monitoring that situation, and we'll let the contractor dictate this to us a little bit, because after all, it's their problem. If something happens, they're gonna deal with it, although if it affects schedule, then it's our problem too. But anyway, that's, the other thing with the utility pole is that once that gets moved, we can get temporary power up to the building, and different lights where we want. Right now, there's a generator up there for whatever power they need, and that's kind of a stopgap thing, so it'll take us a little while to get this pole inspection done.
I guess my point is, if somebody's watching and waiting for that opportunity, if they see a change, you know, if they see lighting, and I don't care if they think you can see it from the road or not, if they see a physical change, that's a great deterrent. And I don't know what the cost of a mercury light installed on a power pole would be. Something that can be utilized at the finishing point somewhere else, but you know, that's what these folks generally look for when they're planning that is change. What's changed? Is there a car idling up there now? You know, they have on-site security, whatever. Because I can't, as thin as I'm spread,